Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Sunya IAS. I hope the voice is able to hear and we're able to see comfortably. People online, just drop a comment. You're able to see this and hear this. This should be fine now. Answer key will be available just after the discussion ends. So here in the discussion, our idea is to understand the nature of questions. How could you have attempted the questions, etc. Right? We'll see the right answer to it and more details, etc. You can get through the PDF that we'll share. We'll be sharing with you the PDF also. Okay? After just the discussion gets done. Here you can see and analyze. How many of you who are watching this actually attempted the test? किस किसने test दिया था याला आज? Okay, Harsh, good to know. SC Grewal, good to know. It's fine. Okay, now I'll be just starting it just 30 seconds. I hope all of you can settle down. Those who are watching this, and let's say somebody is watching it at a later point of time. Also, you can again watch the discussion. If there is any point that you want to again further discuss, or if there is any attempt strategy, or because you know the last almost 2 months are remaining for the exam. So idea was to again ensure that you get a good simulation of questions. How did you find the difficulty of the paper? Those who attempted it, I think Jesse attempted it. Okay, Gopal Krishnan, you attempted it. Those of you who just attempted it, how many questions did you attempt and how did you find the difficulty? Which section you were able to tackle and which was a difficult section for you? We'll discuss all of that. Okay, so in just a moment, I'll be starting the discussion now. Okay, and again, if there is any particular question wherein you want me to elaborate further, I'll do that. Okay, so we'll keep the session interactive. So whatever doubts you have, people who are here online. Okay, it was moderate. Okay, fine. You attempted 80 questions. That's a good attempt. Okay. Now, if you're able to get good number of correct questions here, so that's a very good attempt. Okay, because moving forward, you will now have a proper more than 2 months available. So now you can spend more time on revising it. Okay. Okay. See, every year the nature of the questions will be some part will be difficult. Okay. Some part will be moderate. That is again how UPSC also asks you. Not every section can be easy. Okay. Some questions will be more doable. Right. So here our idea is to see what sections we are lacking in. And we'll try to focus more on that, right? You'll have another test, All India Mock Test 3 also coming in very soon, so that you can again streamline your preparation. Okay. Okay, then I think I'll start now one by one. Yes, I'll also be telling on how to improve the accuracy part, etc. one by one when we see the questions. Your first idea is to see which sections did you attempt where you made more mistakes. So before starting in, because now you've already attempted the test, right? The idea is now to have the takeaways from the test. What did you learn from the test? Here also in this paper, there are many questions which can be solved through some logic, or if you've done the 3 Nether sessions, or through some elimination. Some questions require some basic level of knowledge understanding also. Okay. So here you may feel certain questions of science and tech slightly tougher, or perhaps few questions from polity or some part of current affairs slightly tougher. Some sections equally doable also. Okay. So we will focus on all of that. Fine. So now let's start one by one. Okay, I'll start the discussion 1 second. Okay, now I think this is fine. Okay, the initial questions are based on geography, right? The initial 10 questions or so. So we'll see one by one. Direct question from the NCERT or any of the basic textbooks or notes that you follow. Which are the basic characteristics of peninsular rivers, okay, in India? They have a fixed course and they lack a significant meander. Now, when you read your geography and when you read about rivers, you read about the Himalayan rivers, okay, which are your perennial rivers, and you also read about peninsular rivers. The question is basically asking you, are you aware about the differences between the peninsular and the Himalayan rivers, right? So here, one by one, if you see, they have a fixed course, this is true, and they lack a significant meander. Yes, in fact, it is the Himalayan rivers which will meander more. Okay, so this part is correct. Most major peninsular rivers, they flow, this is important, they flow from west to east. That is also correct. Now the question is, why is that happening? That happens actually because of the tilt of the Deccan Plateau. This is exactly mentioned. Deccan Plateau's tilt towards the southeast. And because of this tilt, you have the tilt of the peninsular rivers, which are flowing from west to east. This is also correct. Third, these rivers are perennial in nature. The moment you see this keyword, you already know this is wrong. They are not fed by both monsoon and glacial melt. In fact, the glacial melt, these are the Himalayan rivers which are actually feeding it, right? So if I look at the Himalayan river system, Himalayan ranges are the sources here, right? Here it's a peninsular plateau. Second thing to know here, the drainage, right? You can also read more about what is antecedent and consequent drainage systems. Third main thing, Himalayan river systems, these are perennial in nature, a concept that has been asked to you, okay? And of course, we have seasonal or non-perennial rivers. These are your peninsular rivers, all right? And here also, what is the meandering part? Here, you will see more meanders and more changes in the rivers, whereas here in the peninsula, they generally follow a straight course. That is what we see. Generally, a straight course is being followed, okay? So here the question is asking you, what is the answer to this? The answer to this is 1 and 2, okay? First is correct, second is correct, third of course is wrong. All right, so that is the answer to question number 1. Right, now next, again a question. You are given a particular type of climate. We have seen these kind of questions particularly on the equatorial type of climate being asked, okay? So now let's see, you have 4 different types of climate, okay? It's a continental climate with very hot summers and very cold winters, okay? Precipitation is light, occurring mainly in the summers. It is insufficient for tree growth. If it is insufficient for tree growth, generally I'm talking of grasslands. If I think of grasslands, okay, I can think of, let's say, prairies, I can think of llanos, campos, steppes, all of that, right? This is also a good hint. It is insufficient for tree growth. Third, it is found in the interiors of the continent, far from the moderating influence of sea. Now, anything that is close to sea faces or has a moderating influence of the sea, right? And something which is deeper inside the continent will have extremes of temperature, which is also mentioned in the first part, also the very first statement of the question, okay? Now, there are 4 statements mentioned. Now, if you look at Mediterranean climate, this climate you already know is around the region of Mediterranean. It is also famous for orchards, citrus fruits, etc., certain vineyards, okay? It has also rainfall throughout, almost in certain part, even in the winters here, okay? This is not a correct part. In fact, Laurentian and British type can also be eliminated because they cannot or they do not follow all the 3 conditions. The best answer to this will be your steppes, okay? If I look at steppes, okay, certain section of North America and generally this part of Central Asia, here you will see grasslands, and if they are grasslands, there will be certain pastoralist communities, okay? Grazing activity, etc., will go on. And in steppes, main thing is because these are not moderated because of the effect of the sea, right? So here they will be found in certain interior continents and insufficient tree growth. So the answer to question number 2 will be the steppe climate, the description which is going to be apt in all of this. All right. So question number 2, the answer is steppe. Now, the idea to have these kind of question is that basic, for example, when you do geography, at least for certain climates, for example, if I ask you China type of climate, if I ask you temperate and intemperate also, I can ask you the different types, okay? Second, tropical also, then in tropical, I can talk about equatorial rainforests. Equatorial rainforest is the theme that is repeated few times, okay? So here, when you prepare this topic, how should you prepare it? The type of climate, which region it is there, what is the characteristic or the vegetation, etc. That is something that you should cover, okay? So that is an idea, that is how we have to spend our time in particular, this particular part, right? So here the answer is steppes, okay? Okay, this is a topic broadly you'll also do in the biome part of environment, but in more detail in the geography part, okay? This should have not been that difficult. In this, you should also prepare the list of tropical grasslands versus temperate grasslands. If you see this image here, I can talk about pampas, campos, okay, different velds in South Africa, okay, different areas where you have grasslands. In the previous UPSC questions, they we even asked you, in grasslands, why don't the trees grow? Okay, so that the reason for that is the very limited rainfall that is available. Okay, and there are other additional limiting factors also, including fire, including grazing, etc. that is there. All right. Now, Western disturbance has been in the news, okay, and in general, it's an important topic that you every year read about. What are these? This is again a basic question that I would hope most of you would have gotten this wrong, would have gotten this right. Pardon. The question is asking which of the following is not correct. Please read it carefully. These are extratropical storms which originate over the Mediterranean Sea. So if I look at this, the origin is from the Mediterranean Sea. Absolutely correct. This is correct. They are brought into the Indian subcontinent by the subtropically westerly jet stream. Even this part is correct. Okay. This is which is bringing it. Subtropical westerly jet stream, correct. Also correct. Now, third statement, even if you read your NCERT, any basic notes, you will often read about. They provide crucial winter rainfall, correct. Benefits Rabi crops. Okay. The examiner can also trick you writing Kharif crops. No, it is Rabi crops. And which one? Particularly wheat in the northwest part. Absolutely correct. So here in this question, if you see, all the three statements are correct. So don't mark all the three. Why? Because the question is saying which is incorrect. The answer is D. None of the statements is correct. Okay. So again, what are these? Western disturbance? Either I can say extratropical storms, extratropical cyclones, okay, which are developing in the Mediterranean region, brought about by this. And in fact, questions like this also help you revise the topic. Generally speaking, for Western disturbance, if I remember only these 3 points, that is more than enough to answer the question. Okay, so please keep this in mind. All right, which of the following is not correct? The answer is D, none. Okay. All right, moving forward. Now, they've asked you this, what is mixed farming? Now here 4 options are given. Some options you may confuse because these options are related to some other term. Okay, so let me go one by one what each term talks about. I'll start with D. Okay, and whatever extra information you are seeing, if you want, you can write it in your question paper, those who have the printed copy. Okay, or you can have a blank sheet of paper. Anything extra or anything valuable that you are finding in here, you can write it. Now, growing crops along with dedicated forest patch, this is actually known as agroforestry. Okay, 2 separate things, agriculture and forestry. So this is not the correct point we are looking at. Growing the same crop in different seasons of the year, right? So I can either say this is something related to monoculture. Okay, and if the crop is same, how is it mixed farming? Not at all. Okay, this, or it can be almost like a multiple cropping system. This is not correct. Equal emphasis laid on crop cultivation and animal husbandry. This is actually mixed farming. Mixed farming is giving equal emphasis on animal husbandry as well as crop cultivation. This is correct. Next, make cultivation of 2 or more crops simultaneously on a piece of land. Okay. Now, in this, there is a separate term for this. I can say intercropping or mixed cropping. Intercropping or mixed cropping is cultivation of 2 or more crops simultaneously on the same piece of land. Okay. So here 4, the answer has to be B. That is the correct one. All right. Now, we have already seen this kind of question 2 years back in the UPSC paper. They've asked you the mountain type and the example. Okay. Again, when you prepare your mountains, the origin of mountains, this is one of the factual static part of geography that one reads about. All right. What is correctly matched? If you look at fold mountains, you already prepare young fold mountains, etc. How are they formed? Okay. Different fault lines, how they move into. So fold mountains, Alps, a very good example. Okay. And of course, you have already read about the young fold mountains in India. Think of the Himalayas and also think of other fold mountains of the world. Okay, this is correct. Block mountain was just, this is also correct. Then Mount Kilimanjaro. Is this a volcanic mountain? Yes, this is also correct. Okay. Now, Ural mountains are your residual or relict mountains. This is also true. Okay, these are also very old mountains. The residual part of that is remaining that you see here has gone through a lot of different forces, okay, which have led to its almost, I can say, the different abrasive forces, and whatever left is the residual part. That is why it is known as the residual mountains, Ural mountains. Okay. Now, in this very question, this could have also become, another column could have been added. One is the name of the mountain and one will be the place of the mountain. So when you're seeing this question, at least this is a very good opportunity to revise where are they located. Now you have to do this homework. In fact, you also know very famous mountains like the Rockies, the Andes. Okay, what kind are they? Also prepare, because see, static part of geography. Okay, in fact, you have mapping, and we have a very good series of YouTube mapping here at our YouTube channel only at Sunya. Some of you have already followed it. Those who are new and who are wondering that your mapping part continent wise is not very good, you are more than, in fact, I would encourage that you watch that. Okay, all of these parts will be integrated, and it is not limited to mountain sea. You should know mountains, you should know the prominent deserts around the world. Okay, because desertification is also in use, formation of desert. Okay, western margins, and you know, cold currents, etc., that you should also know. Then when you do the mapping part, etc., you get to know prominent rivers are there. Okay, this year COP30 in Belém is in New South America, so prepare the continent also well. Okay, in fact, Middle East is there, having a lot of controversy right now. There's a lot of wars going on. A question from the IR or the geography part, Strait of Hormuz, etc., can also be right. Okay, can also be asked. Okay, so here, if you just want to know the answer is all the 4 are correct. But I would want that you should take one step ahead. If you have not done your mapping yet, please do it. Okay, and prepare things continent wise, so that they're able to stick in your head. Okay, and still a lot of time is there. So if you are still have not done mapping, it is better that you do that. Fine. Okay. Now another question that is more conceptual. In fact, in geography, the most of the questions are very conceptual in nature. Near the equator, the level of ocean water is higher than in the middle latitudes. And please make note that you read this carefully. We are saying which of the following is not correct. Okay. Now, second talks about the Coriolis force, and third links water with high salinity to some of the other related parts. Okay. Now, main thing, if I am looking into this part, okay, so what happens? Think of Earth, and maximum insolation, that is the incoming solar radiation, will be received by the equator. This part will get more heated up. Okay. Why? Because the insolation is high. If the insolation is high, water will expand because of getting heated. If it is expanding, okay, the level of ocean water at the equator is higher than that is there at the middle latitude. This statement is absolutely correct. The reason is simply the thermal expansion of water. Why? Because of higher insolation. Insolation is the incoming heat, okay, of the sun. So this part is correct. Okay. Now, second part, Coriolis force. Okay. In fact, I think question number 10 is also based on the concept of Coriolis force. Now, if you look at the equator, okay, do you have Coriolis force at the equator? The answer is no. As you move upwards to the pole, that keeps on increasing. This is also a reason why, one of the reasons why, when you think of the reasons for formation of cyclones, okay, why don't you see cyclones exactly at the equator? The reason is the absence of Coriolis force. At the moment you move upwards, there is more of it. Now here a very basic thing has been asked, that what happens in the northern hemisphere with respect to Coriolis force. Okay, so here, if I just remove what I've written here, in the northern hemisphere, and why the Coriolis force is existing? Because of the rotation. Main thing is the object are deflecting to the right in the northern hemisphere, to the right. Here what it is saying, to the left. This becomes wrong. The ocean water will move towards the right in the northern hemisphere, right? Third, water with high salinity will be denser than water with low salinity. This is correct. Because if you have water, water will have what? Generally water particles, but high salinity means some of the salt content is there. When there is high salinity, you will have more salt particles. Overall, the density of that water is higher. This is correct. So water with higher salinity is denser, yes, than the water with low salinity, right? So third is correct, and even the first is correct. Second one is not correct. Again, please see carefully. The question is saying which of the above is not correct. And sometimes what happens, even if you know the correct answer, right, but you have not read this carefully, you still mark the wrong answer. Okay. If you're getting your questions wrong purely because of not reading, not correct, your takeaway should be read the questions very carefully. Okay, so here, which of the following is not correct? There is only one statement that is not correct for question number 6. That therefore the answer becomes A. Okay, all right. Now, whenever we read basic geography, we read about the oceanic crust, we read about the continental crust. Think of Sial, think of Sima, right? Now here the question is going to ask you on the basics. The oceanic crust and the continental crust both are the part of lithosphere, and they are different in their chemical composition. The very basic statement. This statement is not asking you what is the different composition. Okay, but now you have to think what is Sial and what is Sima. Those who have already done this topic, you already know these acronyms. SI being common, AL and MA. Okay, the aluminum part and the magnesium, right, part. Now, first part is correct. They are both the parts of, so one is, let's say, the continental crust, one is the oceanic crust, right? And they are part of lithosphere, yes, and they are different in their chemical composition, absolutely true. Okay, now, again, the oceanic part, basaltic in nature, right? So rich in magnesium, ferrin, waste particles. Continental part, this is it is based in granite. Okay, now please read this carefully. The continental crust, now here two things are being asked: thicker and heavier. Okay, so if I look at the oceanic crust is thin, 5 to 10 kilometers. Continental crust is thicker, 70 to 30 kilometers. If you just look at the image also, this appears to be thinner, this appears to be thicker. Okay, now if you have not seen heavier, you would have gotten this question wrong. Till here, if I remove this part, the statement is absolutely correct. Continental crust is thicker and heavier compared to oceanic crust. Yes. Now, is it heavier? No. Like we saw, the continental crust, in fact, the continental crust almost floats because of lesser density. The density of the continental crust is lower as compared to oceanic crust. Okay, very basic part of geography which I am telling you, right? If you have gotten this wrong, no worries, please revise your basics. Till now, you know what is Sial, what is Sima. Second, which is thicker, which is thinner. Third, which is heavier, which is lighter. So here this part is correct, but this part actually becomes wrong. The continental crust is lighter as compared to oceanic. So this statement of course becomes wrong. Oceanic crust is very young compared to the oldest continental rock, right? Yes, they are less than 200 million years, oceanic crust. But in continental, they are very old. They can be as old as 4 billion years. All right. So there again, there is a challenge in this case. So which of the following statements is correct? If you look at statement number 7. So here, 2 statements are correct. Only 1 is wrong. The answer becomes B. Only 2 for question number 7. I hope till here we are able to follow. Okay. Hi, Narendra. Okay, and I think Kundan, you will get your answer key very shortly the moment the discussion ends. Okay. We'll try to keep the discussion both brief, but yet I'll be explaining to you these parts, so you can expect it somewhere. Okay, just around 8 PM or so. So right now you can focus on the discussion. The parts that you have done right, again, congratulate yourself. But if there is a learning from the test, okay, that is important. Okay. Now, question number 8. There are mineral belts. This is a part of the economic geography. In fact, this question and the settlement based question just after this is based on this part. Okay, now, northeast plateau. Okay, now there's a mention of gold, iron ore, lignite. Do you find gold in the northeast plateau? Right? In fact, even if you know of the movie KGF, Polar Gold, right? This particularly in the region of Karnataka, right? If I think of lignite, I will have to think of the Netraveli region, okay, Tamil Nadu part. Here only this part is correct, but gold and lignite are not correctly matched. This becomes wrong. Now, if I look at the northwest belt, okay, northwest, think of the portions of Rajasthan, parts of Gujarat, okay, some part of Maharashtra, maybe all of that part. Copper, zinc, yes, I can find in this. In fact, even the parts of petroleum, because we're talking of the region of Gujarat, okay, you can find it. Now, do you find petroleum only in the northwestern belt? No, the question is not asking that. Some of you can also mention that we can also find it in parts of Assam, etc. That is correct. But do you find it here? Yes. Do you find it here? Okay. So that should not be a point of conflict. Because key minerals, yes, this is correct. Southern belt, if I again go back into, okay. Now the question is mentioning coal, manganese and mica. Here also, yes, you will be able to find portions of coal. Okay. In fact, Karnataka plateau, etc. You will be able to find it. But would you be able to find other portions? Not really. Okay. So here, if I look at one by one, the northeastern plateau. Okay. Yes, the question has mentioned iron ore. So Jharkhand, Odisha. Okay, all of that I can find here. Okay. Gold particularly will be finding in Karnataka. Lignite, like I told you, in Neyveli region, Tamil Nadu. Second, northwestern plate, so copper, bead, Khetri, Rajasthan, zinc, again in Rajasthan, at present. Petroleum, Ankaleshwar, etc. which are main in Gujarat. Southern belt, okay. Yes, I can find gold, I can find iron ore or bauxite, okay, but mica in Jharkhand, okay, coal, etc. in other parts. So here, the main thing is which of the following is correctly matched. Okay, this is not correctly matched. This is also not correctly matched. Only one, that is the northwest belt, that is correctly matched. Okay. Here in the just one question, there are multiple facts which are present, right? There are multiple facts. So you should also know, for example, I just mentioned about gold, I mentioned about lignite, okay, I mentioned copper, zinc. In this part, key minerals, it should be clear in your head. Okay, take a map of India or go back to your NCERT of geography. Here, key minerals are mapped. If you have not seen it, you draw it with your own hands. Okay, and you should be clear. For example, gold, and there have been questions in the past which have asked you about copper, zinc, mica, manganese, etc. Okay, so be very clear about this. Okay, so keep that in mind. All right. The answer to question number 8 will be there is only one that is correctly matched. Okay. Okay, you should know bauxite, iron ore, gold, Jharkhand. Okay, JOC, Jharkhand, Odisha, Chhattisgarh, very much prominent for the minerals, etc. That is one part. All right. Now, this is a question that is from the human geography aspect. Okay, and that too a very basic concept of settlement has been asked. Just see the options: linear, rectangular, circular, radial. These are the types of settlements that are there. Okay, so in this question only one, the moment you say a focal feature such as a lake, pond or a village, it develops around a central focal feature, right? The answer is circular pattern. Okay. Second, dwellings are built in such a way they surround a central resource, just like this. There's central resource and it is like a wet point settlement. It is observed in the upper Ganga plain in the Malwa plateau. Okay. The answer to this is your circular pattern, but I will show you all the other 4 patterns also just for reference. Okay. This is a linear settlement. Okay. Across a line, let's say the houses are built across a line. It's on a line. This is a linear settlement. Second, let's say this is a rectangular pattern, almost like a rectangle, one side, this side, almost you can see a rectangular being made here. All right. This is one example. Now, the question that was asking us was this part. It develops around a central focal feature like a lake or a pond. So let's say this is a tank or a lake. Around this central feature, can you see the settlements? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like this. All the settlements are based here, right? So this is also correct. Fine. Okay. And the next one is the rectangular, oh sorry, this one, the last one is a radial pattern. Okay. Now here it is this, let's say, as a circle. Around a circle everything is built. Here, let's say there is one node, other nodes are coming to this node or are flowing from it. Okay. Around these nodes the settlement is there. So you see various types of settlements that we've had a look at in this particular question. Okay, various types of settlements. All right. So that part is there, right? I hope we are able to understand this, right? Okay. Statement number 2 in question number 7. 1 second. Statement number 2 in question number 7, there are 2 things. One is thicker and one is heavier. Okay. Thicker, for example, when we say in terms of kilometers, okay, how thick is it? Okay. And the density part is related to whether it is heavy or not. These 2 things. So continental crust, like we discussed, is thicker. That is true. Okay, like you see here, it is thicker. But is it really heavier? No, because here it is actually floating. Why is it floating? Because of the composition of Cl, rich in, right, Si and Al. It is lighter in nature. This is the difference. Okay, so please keep that in mind. In this question, first part is correct, but because second part is not correct as compared to ocean, which is why the statement is wrong. Okay, I hope we are able to understand this. Okay. Yes, yes, we are saying that heavier and denser, right? If I say an object is very heavy, it is going to be more denser. That is the idea. So you are right on that part. Okay. Okay. I hope we have seen this, the different types of settlement. Now this kind of question, only from this one question you will be able to revise the concept. For some questions, even your test paper is good enough. So when you have seen these in your mind, now if you get a question based on this, because these are very different types of settlement. Sometimes people get confused between circular and radial, but look at radial and look at circular. Very different types of arrangement. Here, based on one single resource, around this circle, let's say all the houses are built. But in radial, you have separate nodes. Along that, the settlements are being based. Two very different types of arrangement. All right. Okay. How many of you attempted question number 10? Or how many of you thought this is a very difficult question? The question is about two places, places A and B, and this is directly applied question. You will not directly see this question in the NCERT. This is an applied question. Okay. Place A, 40 degree north. Place B, 20 degree north. Okay. The longitude is also mentioned. The winds are blowing with equal speed at the two places. Which of the following is the correct observation? Conditions are mentioned. Ignore all the geographical landscapes, frictions, pressure gradient, force. Okay. So, acha, I think, yes, this is an easy question, right? Maybe somebody says, I don't know the longitude and this and that, but if you just know the concept, this is perhaps one of the easiest questions in the paper. Okay. And you have to know just the concept I just told you. What is the Coriolis force at the equator? 0. As you move up the latitude, it increases. So a place which is at 40 degree north, which is, let's say, somewhere here, you have higher Coriolis force. A place lower 20 degree will have a lower Coriolis force. The answer is A. The Coriolis force acting on the wind at place A is greater than at B. Okay, I think some of you have already gotten the answer as correct. So don't leave questions like this if you know the concept. Okay, many things are there, so don't get confused. Here the core idea, the examiner wants to test you, are you aware about the Coriolis force, which is non-existent at the equator and maximum at the North Pole or the South Pole? As I move up the latitude, it is going to increase. That is what is being asked here. Right? Yes, at the pole it is the highest, absolutely correct. So be it the North Pole or the South Pole. So that is your correct answer. The answer is A. Okay, so we have seen the first 10 questions, right, which were more related to geography. Now let's see polity. How did you find the polity section? Did you leave questions? Did you find it doable, manageable? Let's see. Okay, here also I think almost all the sections which are generally asked in the exam we have tried to cover in the polity part also. So let's see now the polity section one by one. Okay, so I think we have around 12 questions, if I'm not wrong, directly based on polity, till I think one question on the finance commission. Okay, you found it moderate. Okay, fair. Chalo, let's see this. Now, if you have done a good reading of your notes of polity, most of the questions you will be able to answer. Some questions may look difficult at the outset, but if you read it carefully, you will be fine. You will be able to do that. Okay. Okay. See, Akash, I think we are talking about a major section, not just a part which is just accidentally found. Right? In case of, let's say, northeast part, we are talking of the generally which part is attributed to it more. Okay, so gold in sufficient reserves are found in which part, right? That is what we are saying in question number 8. Okay, now let's move ahead. The value of economic justice mentioned in the preamble to the Constitution is primarily secured through which of the following? Okay, so we are saying fundamental rights, DPSP's writ jurisdiction, and 44th Amendment. Main thing is how it is getting secured. If you look at economic justice, okay, when we read about fundamental rights, we get to know fundamental rights help in the political justice, political democracy, all right. And Article 19 to 22, which we'll talk about, so Article 14 to Article 18 talk about the right to equality. Then we talk about the freedom of speech and expression, for example. So this does not talk about the economic justice, it will talk more about the political justice. So this is incorrect. DPSPs, on the other hand, yes, DPSPs talk a lot about economic justice. Okay, for example, if you look at Article 38, Article 38 talks about the commitment to a welfare state. You again look at Article 39, it talks about minimizing inequalities. In fact, if you read Article 39B, Article 39C, Article 41, Article 41 also talks about equal pay for equal work, participation of workers in the management of industries. So there are various such examples. Okay. Okay, so where the answer to this question will be the value of economic justice, the answer is directive principles of state policy. And we have many such articles in the DPSP. We know DPSPs from Article 36 to Article 51. Okay. And DPSPs are there to ensure more of social and economic democracy. They help in economic justice. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, a question for you is, how many DPSPs were added by the 42nd Constitution? This is the UPSC PYQ. So keep that in mind. All right. So question number 11, the answer is DPSPs in this part, 38, 39, subparts 39B and C, even Article 41, all of that ultimately talks about ensuring economic justice. Okay. Now, how many of the above instances impinge, okay, which means violate the philosophy of separation of powers? Okay. Separation of powers, again, as a concept highlighted by Montesquieu. Okay, also spoken about by John Locke, talks about the three different wings: executive, legislature, judiciary. They should be independent in their own sphere so that you can have rule of law, so that they can work without any conflict. The question simply says, which of the following violate the philosophy of separation of powers? It simply means if executive work is done by judiciary, it will violate it. If legislature's work is done by executive, okay, so any of the organ, if it is doing somebody else's work, that will violate the idea of separation of powers. That is the core concept. Okay. Now, ordinance making power of the president. What is the president? Is basically all the executive actions of the government are taken in the name of president. Okay. President is a part of executive, but of course we know president is also the part of legislature. Okay. Now, ordinance making power, it is a law making power. But we also know ordinance making power is one of the extraordinary powers. It cannot be done if the parliament or the houses are in session. It can only be done if the houses are not in session, or at least one of the houses is not in session. So here the executive is making a law, okay, that can impinge on the philosophy of separation of powers. That is correct, right? Second, speaker acting as a tribunal means having almost a judicial role under the provisions of 10th schedule, although we have one more question on the 10th schedule. Okay. So here this question is also very direct. Speaker acting as a tribunal, having a judicial type of a role while being the part of the legislature, it also violates or impinges on the philosophy of separation. This is also there. Issuance of Vishaka guidelines by the Supreme Court. Okay, we already know Supreme Court in Vishaka versus the state of Rajasthan talked about prevention of sexual harassment. But ideally, the guidelines should have been brought by the executive, right? Now, the role of executive is played by the judiciary. This is also impinging on the philosophy of separation of powers. The question is not saying what is correct and what is incorrect. The question is simply saying which of the following violate the philosophy of separation of powers. Here, all the three that is mentioned in the question, all the three are actually violating the philosophy of separation of powers. That is correct. All the three. Second, we need to know in India, we don't follow the separation of powers like it is followed in the US. In India, what do we follow? We follow checks and balances. All right, keep this in mind. So here the answer is D, all the three. Okay. Now, which of the following best describes the significance of Article 31C of the Constitution? Now, just read the statements. It gives precedence to all DPSPs over fundamental rights. No. If you have read your polity, you will know that there was a tussle between FR and DPSPs. Okay. Which should take precedence over what? And this was finally settled in the Minerva Mills case, which talks about the harmony between FR and DPSPs. So it was never a question of all DPSPs. Now, then what was the question? The question was specifically DPSPs 39B and 39C versus Article 14, 19, 21. Okay, in fact, even the right to property I can also add here. Right? Now, here again, please understand the main thing was one of the DPSPs was to minimize the inequalities. Right? How can you minimize the inequalities? You can minimize these inequalities by ensuring at least do land reforms. Land reforms was a very much pending part. Okay. So there was a tussle that whether the fundamental rights are superior or the DPSPs were superior. And this also you understand when you read about the basic structure doctrine, when you read about the 9th schedule, which was added by the first Constitutional Amendment Act. Okay. So this is there. Okay. No, Rajesh, in this particular question, in article, be it article 123 or article 213, we are talking of whether it violates the philosophy of separation of powers. Okay. Purely from a political science or political theory lens. That is the idea. Okay. When it does that, okay, so it is not violating it. Please understand, in this question, we are talking from the philosophy of separation of powers. The philosophy of separation of powers, like that it is there, like a philosophy, because we don't follow exactly separation of powers in India. What do we follow? We follow is checks and balances. In our case, executive can also put a check on legislature, legislature can put a check on executive. This can put a check on, right? For example, president can also do pardon. What? That is a judicial function. Yes or no? So here the question simply saying it impinges on philosophy of separation of power. Right? That is why I said that it is not that this part is wrong. We are not debating whether it is correct or incorrect. Okay, so I think Harsh or I think Rajesh, those of you who are just thinking only of India and you're thinking, no sir, you are allowed to do so. Yes, I agree. We are allowed. All these parts, our ordinance in Article 123, 213 is allowed. It is not that violative of the Constitution. We are not saying, but we are saying, does it violate the philosophy of separation of powers? What is the philosophy of separation of powers? That independently, these sections, they are allowed to exist independently and nobody should invade or take over their part. That is the idea of the question. I hope you are able to understand. Your people reasoning is good and even I appreciate this. Very good. Okay. If the question would have been related to whether any of this is unconstitutional, does it violate the basic structure? Then none of that violates the basic structure. But in India, what happens? In fact, when the Supreme Court has Vishaka guidelines, later on Supreme Court also came up with the view related to national anthem. It also came up with the view related to banning of, or let's say liquor related around the highways. Slowly and steadily, judicial activism or judicial review ultimately becomes judicial overreach. So what happens? Something that starts to impinge on the separation of powers can also lead to judicial overreach. Okay, the idea here is philosophy. Yes, absolutely correct, right? Okay, I hope you are able to understand this, right? Otherwise, like you see in India, otherwise judicial review will only be judicial review. Review can also become judicial activism, can also become judicial overreach. Yes or no? Okay, I hope this part is clear. Okay, fine. And you are more than welcome to ask these kind of doubts, because again the idea is to help you solve the questions. Fine. Main thing again, and that is why I'm highlighting, impinges on the philosophy of separation of powers. And you should know, we do not follow the separation of powers like that is in the US. Our case is different. That is why there is no watertight strict compartmentalization in India. So philosophically speaking, based on books and theory speaking, this is violative of separation of powers. Why? Because you have checks and balances in India. Right? Now, I hope we are able to understand this part, right? That is why it impinges, the idea is impinges on the philosophy of the Constitution. Oh, sorry, philosophy of separation of powers. Right. Now, coming back to significance of 31C. Fine. Now, this part is wrong. It does not give precedence to all the DPSPs. Okay. Second, it protects the laws enacted to implement DPSPs under 39B and C from being challenged under 14 and 19. This is correct. In fact, if you read this 31C, saving of laws giving effect to certain directive principles, that is the core idea. All right. So here, basically, the idea is that it is going to give effect to principles laid down in part 4. Okay. That is the core idea. It protects the laws elected to implement DPSPs. Main is 39B and C from being challenged under Article 14 and 19. Okay, fine. It allows the state to take over private property without any compensation. This is wrong. In fact, for this, please remember, there is something known as the doctrine of eminent domain. In that, the state can take away private property, right? But only after due compensation. In fact, very recently, if you think about the news reports of the people who have been paid compensation. People have been paid a very handsome amount, 5 crores, 6 crores in areas, let's say, around the Jewar airport and other places. So if the government directly or the state takes up directly the land without any compensation, this is violative of your rights. This is not correct. Okay. Okay. It was struck unconstitutional. No, this is not correct. The answer is directly for 13. Answer is B. Okay. It protects the laws enacted to implement DPSPs. That is question number 13. Now, with reference to the Constitution of India, again, if you've read your DPSPs, and even this part has been covered, claims of SCs and STs to services and posts, please note the question is saying it has to fill 2 conditions. One, it is a directive to the state to implement, and it is mentioned in the Constitution. It is mentioned outside part 4. Whenever we read part 4, right, what is inside part 4 is your article 36 to 51. So there are certain other directives which are outside part 4. The question is saying, are these outside part 4? Second, it is a directive to the state. It is mentioned in the Constitution. Both parts have to be correct for this to be right. Okay. So first is correct. It follows both the condition. Even second is correct, follows both the condition. Even third is correct, which follows both the conditions. Okay. So here, this is right. In fact, please note here, it is only mentioned till primary stage. You have article 350A specifically with respect to this. And later you have an article 350B, okay, which creates again a special officer for linguistic minorities. That particular article was added by the 7th Constitutional Amendment Act. Okay. But main thing, this is mentioned and both the conditions are being satisfied. Okay. I hope this part also is clear. All right. Now, let's move ahead. So here the answer is all the 3 are correct. They are mentioned also, these are also directives. Both the parts are correct. Okay. Now, some other questions I think are known. I'll also take up your doubt very shortly. Okay. Now, no, in the 42nd part, see now, no, if I look at 31C, okay, it will talk about both the things, anything which takes away rights conferred by Article 14 or 19, okay, and it is giving effect to this, does not give effect to this policy, etc. Right. So saving in the law specifically related to certain directives, which were the directives 39B and C. Okay. Now, moving ahead, question number 15. This is also a question I think is conceptual in nature. There are certain points to be understood. Now, President of India can promulgate an ordinance authorizing expenditure from Consolidated Fund of India. Now, you have to tell, how can you take money from Consolidated Fund of India? Who is the main custodian? It is the Parliament. And Parliament can only take money or extract money through appropriation. Okay. There has to be an appropriation bill, right? Only then it has to be taken. It cannot be done through an ordinance. This is wrong, absolutely wrong. Okay. In fact, if I read the articles 114 clause 3 263, no money can be withdrawn except for under an appropriation law passed by the Parliament. Very clear. Okay. So here President, no. In fact, when you think of the Contingency Fund of India, right, and that too is operated through the Finance Secretary, there President is involved, but you don't have to have an ordinance the case of consolidated fund, that is wrong. Now, the parliament is prohibited from discussing expenditure charged. Main thing is charged upon. See, there are two things. One is to be able to vote on something. One is to be able to discuss something. Okay, expenditure that is charged upon, okay, cannot be voted, right? But main thing is, so this is non-votable. This is true. But parliament is not prohibited from discussing it. It can be discussed. This is wrong. And this statement has been asked in the PYQs if you have looked into it. So notice the main thing, discussed. If this was voting, then this would have been right. Anything that is charged upon the consolidated fund is non-votable. But can the parliament discuss? The parliament can discuss. There is no stopping them to discuss it. So this then becomes wrong. First is wrong, second is wrong. Let's see. A vote on account deals only with the expenditure side, whereas an interim budget includes both receipts and expenditure. This is correct. The budget in any case will have to talk about both receipt and expenditure. That is correct. And the vote on account only deals with the expenditure side. Yes. All right. Last. Contingency Fund of India. See, there are three funds which we talk about. We talk about Consolidated Fund of India. We talk about the Public Account of India. Okay. And third, we also talk about the Contingency Fund of India. Right. So the Consolidated Fund of India. Okay. FI, managed or through the parliament. Okay. But the contingency fund is done by the president, but it is who is doing it on the behalf of president? It is the finance secretary. This is correct. Okay. So keep that in mind. So what is the correct answer here? The correct answer becomes only 2. The last 2 statements are correct, and you also know why the other 2 statements are incorrect. Okay. All right. We'll be having the class on the political theory also very soon. So don't worry, most probably tomorrow only. Weekdays were off, weekends are off. Okay, and we had some classes in between, so we could not have it. So the other remaining classes we'll also have. Thank you for your comment. So coming back, the answer to this is a good conceptual question for you, question number 15. Okay, let's now move ahead. Again, question number 16 directly talks about the basics. Okay, when parliament makes a law, where is it applicable? And when state makes a law, where is it applicable? And this question also tells us about there is known as a doctrine of territorial nexus. Okay, let's see this. A parliament can make a law for whole or any part of the territory of India with extraterritorial operation. This is absolutely correct. If you read Article 245, extent of laws made by the parliament and by the legislatures. Okay, parliament can make laws for whole or any part of the territory of India, and the legislature of the state can make laws whole for a part of the state. This part is correct. Even extraterritorial operation can also be there. Okay, now second statement very carefully. A state legislature can make laws for whole or any part of the state. Correct. That can have extraterritorial operation if there is, main keyword, territorial nexus between the state and the object. Okay, now let's first take an example. Okay, let's think of a state. Let's say we talk about Maharashtra. Okay, now there is a particular company that is working. Okay, the company is having, or let's say the company's office maybe is located somewhere else outside Maharashtra, but company is having a substantial revenue in Maharashtra. The question is, will the laws of Maharashtra be applicable to that company or not? It will be applicable. In this case, there is a territorial nexus, because while the company may not be physically present in that state, it may be outside. It can happen. It can be an MNC. But if it is getting some of the revenues from that particular state, the laws will be also applicable to that part also. So when I'm looking at parliament, it is very clear. Okay, or when I'm looking, they will have extraterritorial operation, but can the state legislature have it? For that, we say something known as territorial nexus. What is territorial nexus? Okay, and remember this doctrine, just remember, normally the state law is limited to its own territory. Okay, in that part only it has to be applicable, but it can apply to persons also or to certain activities even outside the state if there is a territorial nexus. Okay, which means that connection must be real, it should not be artificial, and the law must be relevant to that connection. That's it. This is in very short what is the meaning of territorial nexus. Okay, now in case you did not know this doctrine, but you already know Till here, you add it to your notes. Doctrine of territorial nexus, right? And I've gave you that one simple example. Let's say there's a state law which applies to a person. Let's say the person is outside, but for some reason, for some substantial economic activity or some activities is also present in the state. The state law should apply. Why? Because of this doctrine of territorial nexus. To keep this in mind. Okay. So here, coming back, the question is saying which of the following is not correct. If you see this, are both the questions or statements correct? Yes, both the statements are absolutely correct. What should be the answer? Not correct. Neither is incorrect, right? Now, this is a very important question from Parliament, right? I would hope some of you would, or most of you have attempted it, number one, and you got it correct. Let's see this one by one. A joint sitting of the Houses of Parliament. First of all, joint sitting is there in which article? Article 108. Okay. Can be summoned for a money bill. For an ordinary bill, yes, you can summon it. But for a money bill, cannot be summoned. This is wrong. Right? Second, a financial bill under Article 1171. Okay. When you look at money bill, when you look at financial bill 1, which is 117 clause 1, this bill has more money matters and some administrative matters. And there is a financial bill 2, which is your 117 clause 3. This bill has more administrative matters and very, very limited money matters. Now, money bill. Money bill is introduced in which house? The answer is only Lok Sabha. Financial bill 1, because it has more money matters, you have to remember, more money matters and limited administrative matters. This particular bill, okay, when I'm looking at Article 1171, this is also known as the Financial Bill 1, okay. This is introduced again only in Lok Sabha, but Financial Bill 2, because it has more of administrative matters, it can be introduced in both, can be either Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. So money bill and financial bill will be similar. In which house will they be introduced? Because they are talking of the money matter. See, money bill is properly defined in our Article 110. The matters related to it, specifically 110 clause 1. So here in this case, the answer is, for example, the financial bill under this can be introduced in either of the house. No, it can be introduced only in Lok Sabha. So this becomes wrong. Although that requires the assent recommendation of the president, but the moment you say either house, that becomes wrong. Now, the judiciary can certify a money bill in exceptional circumstances. No. Who has the power to certify the money bill? The power remains in this case with the speaker. Judiciary is not able to intervene on this regard. This statement also becomes wrong. All the three are wrong. The answer becomes D, none. It becomes none. Okay. 1, 2, 3, all the three statements are wrong in this. Right. So joint sitting, Article 108. Sometime past they've also asked you which article. 108. 110 is money bill. 112 is annual financial statement. Fine. Financial bill under the Article 117. So this is directly based on the concept that you read about. The answer here becomes for 17, none, D. All right. Now, how many of the above powers are, main thing is, mandatorily vested in Gram Sabha under PESA, Panchayat Extension Schedule Areas Act? Now, in polity, this question will be difficult. Okay, if you have not known about the PESA Act. Okay, now in this there are many things which are mandatorily, some powers are vested in the Gram Sabha. For questions like this, the solution of this question should be good enough to revise the topic. Okay, now, power to approve plans and programs for social economic development. Yes, this power is mandatorily vested with the Gram Sabha. This is correct. Mandatory consultation before acquisition of land for development project. This is also true. Okay. In fact, if you have read also about the Forest Rights Act, there also you read about Gram Sabha has powers here. Third, ownership of minor forest produce. This is also correct. Again, I'm saying those of you who have read or done the class of the Forest Rights Act with me, the first three you will know. Okay, these are 100% sure. These are with the Gram Sabha. Now the catch lies whether statement 4 is also true or not. Power to manage minor and major water bodies. This is incorrect, right? Major water bodies do not come under the jurisdiction or the powers of Gram Sabha. They have powers only to manage the minor water bodies. Because the part major is mentioned, that is why this also becomes wrong. Okay. So if you see at the section 4 of PESA Act, panchayats are interested with the management of minor water bodies. Okay. They don't have the power to manage the major water body. Okay. So here in this, the answer becomes only 3 powers are mandatorily vested in the Gram Sabha. I hope this part is also clear. Fine. Now, again an interesting question. I hope you have read this question carefully. Okay. Consider the following provisions with respect to Constitution of India. Which of the following provisions cannot be amended by a simple majority in the parliament? Question is saying which cannot be. Admission or establishment of new states, Article 2. Okay, rules of procedure and enlargement of jurisdiction of Supreme Court. See, if you have read your Article 4, Article 4 says that if we make changes to Article 2 and Article 3, and these two changes make changes in Schedule 1 and Schedule 4 of the Constitution only, then this does not require an amendment under Article 360. It is not considered an amendment under Article 368. Okay, it is considered an amendment, but it is not considered an amendment under Article 360. So Article 2, this part is true. Okay. Second, rules of procedure in the parliament. Okay, here also if I say the rules of the procedure, they are actually regulated by House of Parliament. Okay, don't have to remember the article, but here they can be simply amended by a simple majority. Right, see, a constitution can be amended through Article 368 also, and outside 368 also. Outside 368 is via a simple majority. Even this can be done, even this can be done. But changes in the 7th schedule, you have all the list, union list, state list, okay, and the concurrent list. If I want to make changes in that, it will be done through Article 368. This impacts the federal provisions, which means 50% of the strength of the House, 2/3 of the members present and voting, plus 50% of the states will also have to ratify on this. Okay, so this particular part cannot be amended by the simple majority. Till now, only this should be in my answer. These two should not be in my answer. Okay, I'm putting a cross mark because this cannot be amended by a simple majority. Enlargement of jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Okay, if I want to enlarge the jurisdiction, this can be done by Parliament, by law. Okay, and this can also be done overall by a simple majority. This can be done. Question is saying which cannot be amended by a simple majority. 3. The answer is only 1. Changes in the 7th schedule to the Constitution is related to this. Okay. No, in case of money bill, I think yes, the answer is already given by one of your friends. Especially, it is also mentioned in Article 110, the power to certify the money bill. Even in these exceptional cases, everywhere the power lies with the Speaker. This power cannot be taken by the judiciary. Okay. And in fact, if this happens, then this will definitely violate the basic principles of philosophy of the Constitution. Okay, this power is there. Of course, power 142 talks about doing the extraordinary powers to do complete justice. Okay, but that is generally related to other matters that come before the court, not related to this matter. Okay, so even in exceptional circumstances, the judiciary cannot certify a particular bill to be a money bill. So here, I think question number 19 should not be very difficult. The answer is A. Only one provision cannot be amended by a simple majority. Changes in the 7th schedule to the Constitution. Okay, now let's see the next question related to Speaker of Lok Sabha in the 10th schedule. Okay, to the Constitution of India. The question, there are 4 statements here mentioned. Now, what is the role of Speaker? Okay, can undertake suo moto proceedings if he is satisfied? No. Main thing is he cannot take suo moto. He can only act upon the disqualification petition which is filed by any other member of the House. This particular matter has also been examined by the court, whether the Speaker of Lok Sabha in the 10th schedule, whether that Speaker has suo moto powers or not. No, can only act about disqualification petition filed by any other members. Okay, so this is correct. Talking of Speaker of Lok Sabha and the 10th schedule, and talking about the disqualification, because the power to decide on disqualification based on anti-defection or the 10th schedule is with the Speaker. Is this beyond judicial review? No, it is under judicial review. This was decided by the Kyoto-Holohan case. Okay, so just remember this case also, Kyoto-Holohan case. And main thing is here that in this, the Speaker can act as a tribunal to decide related to the matters of defection, right? Keep this in mind. The judicial review is applicable, but judicial review is very limited in this. Okay, other than this, Speaker is required to exercise the power if a question of disqualification is referred before him, right? So this does not mean he has the power to take suo motu decisions. Okay, no power has been conferred upon the Speaker to take suo motu decisions. Okay, so in this question, one additional piece of information is the Kyoto-Holohan case. All right. Which question are you talking about? Enlargement of jurisdiction of Supreme Court. This can be done via Article 138, enlargement of jurisdiction of Supreme Court, and this can be done by Parliament by law. Parliament can do it simply by law. Wherever Constitution is silent, we are talking of a simple majority. Okay, this can be done, okay, by a simple majority, and this does not fall under Article 368 specifically. Okay, enlargement of jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Okay, now my question to you, can the jurisdiction of Supreme Court be restricted or it can be increased? Can it be restricted or it can be increased? Answer this. Okay, I hope we have been able to answer question number 20 also. The answer is C. Yes, cannot be restricted, can be increased. Okay, good. The answer is correct. Now, next question. Question now, even if the question does not say 16th Finance Commission or even Finance Commission, then that is correct. See, Finance Commission, which article? Article 280. Ultimately set up by a president. The term is for 5 years. Okay. Now, one fact I want to ask you: who was the chairman of first Finance Commission and 16th Finance Commission? First and 16th. 16th FC is in news. You should know. Yes, can be increased by the Parliament, but cannot be decreased. Very good. Josh, okay, and unknown. Now, let me first answer this, then I'll give you some additional point also. 15th Finance Commission, its members, including the chairman, have been appointed by the President of India. This is correct. Okay. No, that is incorrect. The answer, see, 15th Finance Commission, the chairman was N.K. Singh. Okay. The 16th Finance Commission, Arvind Pangaria. Okay, very good. I think Shiv Prasad has, yes, K.C. Neoji was the chairman of the first Finance Commission. K. Neoji, very good. First remember, 15th remember, 16th remember. Okay, now let's see this. First statement is correct. Second statement, its members, including the chairman, shall be eligible for reappointment. Correct. Okay. Please do not spam the answer key. I've already mentioned the answer key will be available just after the discussion. Okay. Please try to focus on the session. I've already mentioned it. Okay. This is generally how we do it, and we have the discussion immediately after the test. Okay. So that helps you also learn about some of the statements, some additional backgrounders. You can have a discussion with me here. Immediately after this, you will have the key. So please don't worry about it. Okay? Yes, I think some of you are the right answer, right? Its recommendations cover over a period of 5 years. This is true. If I say 16th Finance Commission, so from 2026 to 2031 is the time frame or the time period. This is true. In this question, the answer is all the three are correct. Okay. Now, I will give you one homework. Please compare. In fact, see, I'll tell you two things now. When I talk about devolution, devolution can be vertical it can be horizontal. So please remember, 15th Finance Commission and 16th Finance Commission both have said 41% should go of the funds, total divisible pool, 41% should go to the states. That means it is unchanged in 15th and 16th Finance Commission. Okay. In 14th Finance Commission, it was 42%. 15th Finance Commission, 41%. 16th Finance Commission, again, 41%. But the change has happened here in the horizontal part. Okay. So in this, there is a bifurcation, the overall points, right? Think of the overall performance, demographic performance, census. There are many parameters. What you have to do is to prepare a list of comparison of 15th and 16th. What has increased, what has decreased, and what is new. Parameters will be here. A similar question of 14th versus 15th comparison has been asked by UPSC. This again can be a probable question. Okay. So this you have to know and prepare. Okay. Keep that in mind. All right. So question number 21. The answer is C. All right. Now let's move ahead. Now 22, very much in the news. Okay. Tax silica, I hope many of you have heard about in your current affairs. AUKUS, and there is MTCR. The question is saying, which of the following is a military security partnership? Military security partnership. Okay. The answer to this is only AUKUS. Only AUKUS is a military security partnership. Now, the Pax Silica is related to something else. Of course, India had been invited earlier to Pax Silica, and India joined it slightly later. Is India a member? Yes, India is a member. India enters Pax Silica. Okay. It is a US-led group, and main thing for Pax Silica is to build and secure supply chains. Build and secure supply chains. Okay, critical minerals, energy imports, manufacturing, semiconductors, all these are important, right? So India and USA have signed the Pax Silica. Please remember this. Very much in the news. But is Pax Silica a military security partnership? Not at all. It is not a military security partnership, right? Second, you have AUKUS. Okay. Now, AUKUS is a military security partnership. Okay. Now, my question is NATO, NATO, a military security partnership? In our previous All India mock test, we've asked you questions on NATO, the recent members of NATO, etc. I want to ask you, is NATO a military security partnership? Okay. Now, so Pax Silica is not. AUKUS is yes. AUKUS, you have the different countries here. Okay. So you have okay, the US, right, Australia here, for example, countries which are there for military security. The last one is MTCR, Missile Technology Control Regime. Okay. Harsh, I'll just, okay, I think you've asked a question whether if the judicial review is applicable to the decision in this case. Okay. So here Supreme Court cannot certify that. As simple as that. Supreme Court is not going to certify that. Okay. In fact, for this part, if you also know, there have been controversies related to Aadhaar. Okay. Aadhaar was certified ultimately as a money bill. Okay. But ultimately, main thing is the main prerogative, the main authority to certify whether a particular bill is a money bill or not ultimately rests with the speaker. And with speaker, we've also done one more thing, that is the Kyoto Holohan case, that is with respect to the decision of disqualification. Even in that regard, there is a very limited judicial review that is present. It is going to be assumed that speaker has taken a right decision. Only in extreme cases of mala-fide intent, we'll say that. Okay. Now, MTCR is there, Missile Technology Control Regime. Now, MTCR, first of all, it is related to export control regime. Okay, in the very next question, we've asked you even export control regimes. MTCR happens to be one, but is MTCR a military security partnership? Not at all. Okay, for example, when India was not a part of MTCR, the range of BrahMos was limited to less than 300 kilometers. However, after becoming a member of MTCR, the range of BrahMos is beyond 300 kilometers, which can be even 500, 600 kilometers. So this is related to export control regime, MTCR. Is India a member of MTCR? Yes, it is a member of MTCR now, which is why the range of BrahMos has also increased. Okay, is that correct? Okay, so that particular part, please keep this in mind. Okay. Now, if we have followed till here, Achal, I think you've asked one question. Is there a need for president's permission? Yes, the president's recommendation is required in case of 117, right? And that is, yes, I think it is required. The recommendation is required in this case, right? It is slightly diluted in case of 1173, because in 1173 you have more of administrative and general matters also, right? Coming back, Pax Silica, I hope all of you are clear on Pax Silica. AUKUS also you are clear. AUKUS out of these three happens to be a partnership, military partnership. Okay, so you have Australia, United Kingdom and US. Okay, and last one is MTCR. Is India part of MTCR? Yes, which also helps India increase its range, okay, of the missiles. So here answer is only one. Which of the following is a military security partnership? The answer is only one. Fine. Now, India is a member of how many of the above? Is India a member of Australia group? Yes. Wassenaar? Yes. NSG, often you know India is not a member of NSG. Okay, India is not a member of nuclear suppliers group, right? In this question, if MTCR was also mentioned, he is a member of this. All these four combined are related to the four export control regimes. All these four. In these four, India is a member of three. So India is a member of MTCR, like we saw. India is a member of Australia group. And India is also a member of Wassenaar arrangement, right? The Wassenaar arrangement. Now you should know one thing about this, okay? So we are talking about Australia group, the chemical biological weapons. Chemical biological weapons related to this, you have an Australia group. Okay, it's simply an informal voluntary kind of a group. Second, you have a Wassenaar arrangement. Okay, here it talks about export of conventional weapons. Second thing, a phrase that is used is dual use. Dual use goods and technologies. Okay, for example, when I say dual use, something can have a military use, something can have a civilian use. That can be a part of dual use. So Australia group talks about chemical and biological weapons. India is a part of it. Wassenaar, again India is a part of it. It is again export of conventional weapons. And lastly, MTCR, again related to weapons of mass destruction, overall conventional weapons. This is export control regime. India is a part of these three, but India is not a part of nuclear suppliers group. India is not a part of it, right? And to be a member of NSG, again there are certain discriminatory provisions. Okay, so immediately when India had conducted its first nuclear test way back in 1974, then this group was formed. Okay, again how it divides the words into haves and have-nots. There is also related to NPT, non-nuclear proliferation treaty is also there. Okay. Okay. So that is there. Question number 3. The answer becomes how many of these India is a part of? The answer is B, only 2. India is a part of only 2. All right. Now, question number 24. How many of the above are musical instruments that were recently awarded a GI tag? The moment you see the term GI tag, in India you have a separate GI Act of 1999. Geographical Indications Act. This is ultimately complying with the provisions of WTO, World Trade Organization, TRIPS. Okay, trade related aspect of intellectual property, right? Now, which of the following instruments were recently awarded a GI tag? Okay, normally you see a GI tag with respect to other, maybe some perishable, eating some kind of points, right? Now, there's a Merit, Bugle, Borindo, Tumri. Okay, now you may have heard about Tumri. You may have heard about the Hindustani, the classical music, Tumri. Okay, so it is not, Tumri is not a specific instrument, by the way. First thing. Now, Borindo, maybe some of you are seeing for the first time. It is a difficult, maybe this question is more tricky in nature, right? So, Merit Bugle, commonly used in military parades, it has earned a GI tag. This is how a Merit Bugle looks like. Okay. Now, what is the idea when you give something a GI tag? First thing is, its intellectual property is respected and protected. Okay. It cannot be ripped off in other regions. So, please keep this in mind. All right. So, Merit Bugle, this is your Merit Bugle instrument, is used in the drills of armed forces. Okay. Ceremonies, this has recently got a GI tag. So, keep this in mind. Second thing, this instrument that is mentioned, Borindo, is important instrument, but it is not awarded a GI tag. Now, Borindo has been in news by, it has been said to be a dying folk musical instrument, right? Now, this particular instrument goes back, or the idea, see, so this is mentioned in the 2025 Intangible Cultural Heritage in need of urgent safeguarding. So, there is a reason why this has been mentioned. It is in the need of urgent safeguard. Okay, and this goes way back to IVC, Indus Valley Civilization. Okay, it's a musical instrument. It originated in Sindh, Pakistan, and it has been listed in the need for urgent safeguarding. Please keep this in mind. Okay. Other than that, Tumri, like I've said, is related to the music, classical music. Okay, and also related to the dance, Kathak, UP. So keep this in mind. Okay, some additional points in this regard. So you have Merit Bugle. Okay, some of the things that you have not read, you will see from the question itself, some new updates, etc. here and there. Okay, that is there. Fine. Now, you have temples. What is the architecture type and what is the feature? The reason to ask you this question is twofold. One is to also test your knowledge on the art and culture aspect. Okay, you see Dravidian style. Okay, you also hear about the different styles of architecture of temple. There is also the Nagar style. Okay. Now, the reason is the Padmanabha Swami temple, which is also asked to you, performs a rare Maha Kumbhabhishek, right? And this was done after almost 270 years. Now, in this question, you have to test whether the feature is also correct, the architecture is also correct, and the temple is also correct. So, the Tirumala temple, the Tirumala Venkateshwar temple, okay, Dravidian style, this should not be very difficult. Yes, located in the Sheshachalam hills, this is absolutely correct. Okay, and when you think of Sheshachalam hills, to directly think of the Tirupati temple, the Tirumala Venkateshwar temple, this is correct. Padmanabha Swami temple, Dravidian style. Okay, this was renovated by, okay, Marthand Verma, this is true, and this was the news because of the rare Maha Kumbh Abhishek, which was performed after 270 years. Okay, and there was a renovation that was being done. This is a very recent update. Okay, so keep this in mind. Third one is the Jagannath temple, Kalinga Nagar style. This is true. This is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. In fact, in this test only, we have a couple of more questions on UNESCO World Heritage Site. Okay, so this part is true. All right, so keep this in mind. Okay, now you have military exercises. Okay, you have partner country and the location this is done. Now, I can agree that this part is going to be very factual in nature. Maybe you know the military exercise and the partner country, but you are not aware of it. Okay, so this is going to be a tough and a factual question in the exam. Okay, so if you have left this question because let's say you know this part, but you do not remember this detail and you have left it, absolutely okay. Okay, there's not every question you will be able to answer. Some questions you have to know. And if you have attempted the question simply, even if you did not know it, then you should ask yourself that why did you attempt? Okay, if you know it, excellent. But then again, I'm telling you, it will be difficult to factually memorize all these things. And sometimes if you look, even the 2025, 2024 PYQs, they've gone into nitty-gritties. But that does not mean that you will remember every fact about the current affairs, right? So you can also exercise those of you who have left this question. This will be a very tough question in the exam hall, because Garud Shakti, let's say you know the partner country, but maybe you don't know whether it is Himachal Pradesh or some other part of India. Is that clear? So 26 for this part. In fact, everything is correctly matched. This is correctly matched. The part is correctly matched. Desert cyclone, UAE correctly matched. Abu Dhabi, Yuddha Abhyas, USA, and also Alaska correctly matched. The answer is all the three. 1, 2, and 3. All these are correctly matched. Okay. That is there. Now, let's move to question number 27. The question is saying which of the following is not correct about India's missile programs. 4-statement question is there. From just one question, we get to know about Agni Prime, Astra, Kalam 4, and Nag missile system. Right now, let's have a look at this one by one, and we have to see which particular part is incorrect in this regard. Okay. Now, Agni Prime, is it a nuclear capable missile? This is correct. But is it a MIRV capable? This is not correct. Okay. In fact, there are terms also there is a term ballistic missile. Okay. So you should have prepared or should know what is the difference between a ballistic missile and a cruise missile. If I ask you BrahMos, is BrahMos a ballistic missile or a cruise missile? And what is the difference between them? Okay. Now, MIRV means multiple independent re-entry. Okay. And V is vehicle technology. Okay. So, MIRV is not associated with Agni Prime. MIRV is actually associated with Agni 5. And when you look at Agni 5, the range is almost 5,000 kilometers. So is Agni Prime nuclear capable? Yes, it is. But is it MIRV, multiple independent re-entry vehicle technology? No, that is not true. Okay. And because of that, other parts are correct. It is a ballistic missile. Okay. All of that part is correct. Okay. The main thing is Agni 5. If the question was Agni 5, then this whole statement was correct. Agni 5 is nuclear as well as MIRV, multiple independent re-entry vehicle. Okay. And because of multiple independent vehicle, main thing is it can carry multiple warheads. It will be able to carry multiple warheads. That is an additional point of it, right? Now, Astra has been in news not just this year. If you read about your current affairs, main thing in Astra, remember, is BVR, beyond visual range. Is this true? Yes. Is it air to air? Yes. With indigenous radio frequency seeker, correct. Kalam 4 is nuclear capable intermediate range submarine launched ballistic missile, true. And the last one is Nag missile system, is equipped with high explosive anti-tank warhead for enhanced penetration against the modern armored vehicles. This is true. Okay. So the question is saying which of, okay, I think somebody's also answered it. Yes, it is a cruise missile. Okay, that's the right answer. Nag is also correct. Okay, anti-tank warhead, etc. is there. Main thing, what is incorrect? Question number A is incorrect. Nag Prime. Oh, sorry, Agni Prime. Okay. So this is one. Now, question number 28, and in fact 28 and 29 are also related to defense. Okay. This year you will see questions on defense, okay, or related to the defense systems. In the previous test, we've also asked you defense system. You know about S-400, you know about THAAD. Okay, but we've also asked you defense systems of China, etc., other countries in the previous test. Now, this is very short range air defense system, and we see why is this useful. What is the superiority of the very short range air defense system? Okay, they typically utilize IR, infrared seekers, rather than radar seekers. This is correct. Okay, now why is this being done? The IR seekers, they do not emit any signal. Okay, whereas the radar waves, whenever it is emitted, of course, it will alert the enemy aircraft. Okay, they can take evasive actions the moment there is a blip on the radar. They can take actions on it. But infrared does not emit any signals. That is true. Then the name is, it is a very short range. So at short distances, they are superior at tracking down enemy targets as compared to radar seekers. Is this correct? This is also correct. The reason is at very short distance, the IR seekers, how are they able to track? They look at the movement of the aircraft, okay, the heat generated because of these engines, right? And because of that, they're able to track it down. So they're not dependent upon the radio waves, the radar waves that are emitted, but they will look into the heat overall that is being generated, which is why they are more superior to it. So main question, the question is saying, why are the very short range air defense superior? Okay, they are number one, portable, okay, very much compact, very simple systems are there. IR, basically these are heat seeker, okay. So main thing is for stealth operations. What is the meaning of stealth? That you are not generally seen. If the radar is able to see and catch you, the defense systems will get activated, okay. Here also think of the B-2 bombers of US, okay. Now that is a separate example, although IR seekers that do not emit any signals, that is why they are very difficult to detect, okay. No warning is given overall, so very much surprise engagement can be there, and they are very effective at short range, right, at low altitude, right. Now specifically, if you see the last statement, at low altitude or at short distances, for example, there will be buildings, there are many such things. So this particular radar seekers in a cluttered environment, radar seekers are not very much useful. Why? The radars will also get, or they'll hit into some of the buildings, etc., because at low altitudes, so they're not very effective at low altitudes. Whereas the short range systems, they are more effective, right? The heat signature of the aircraft system. And main thing you have to know as the cluttered environment. In an environment, you will have certain infrastructure, certain buildings. So the radar waves will almost hit and they will not have a very good view in that regard. But the air defense systems at short range, they are able to only look at the heat. Because of these reasons, statement 1 was anyways correct. Statement 2 is also correct. Statement 3 is also correct. And they actually help us explain statement number 1 in this regard, right? So here the answer becomes A. 29, your answer is A. All right. Now let's move ahead. Which of the following is equipped with a scramjet engine? You have Tejas, LCA, Dhruv, new generation helicopter, Netra. Okay. Now both, be it Tejas, be it Dhruv, or be it Netra, all the three, they actually carry the conventional engines. Okay. So you have conventional engines which are found in Tejas or be it Dhruv, Netra. They can use the turbofan or a turbo shaft. Now in the conventional engines, you will have all these rotating or the moving parts. Okay, you will have compressors, turbines, etc., which are there, right? They can operate from 0 speeds. If you look, this is almost a conventional engine, the turbojet kind of an engine. They have a compressor and a turbine. This is how they are working. A scramjet engine, in that sense, does not have these moving parts. This is how your scramjet looks like. No moving parts are specifically, right? And this works only at hypersonic speeds, more than Mach 5. It cannot operate at very low speeds, right? It needs certain pre-acceleration. So main thing in this case that you see here, all the three, be it Tejas or Dhruv or Netra, all the three are not equipped with scramjet. The answer here becomes none of the above is having scramjet. Okay. In this question, again, a possible thing that you can also read and also know about is the difference between ramjet and scramjet. Okay, what I've told you at very basic level, that scramjet will have no moving parts. Okay, it requires the incoming air, right? Incoming air is going to be required in this part. Okay, it will require it to be at supersonic speeds in the engine to function. Okay, only there for hypersonic speeds and vehicles. Please keep this in mind. Okay, this is just a very basic gist I'm giving you for these parts, scramjet engine. All right. Now, question number 30. Now, I think we move into the ancient and the medieval part also. Some questions are here as well, right? So, let's have a look at it. Now, with reference to the Shrenis, one second, I think Kumar Pushpam has a doubt here. if I look at the UNESCO World Heritage Sites overall, right? So when you look at all the temples and overall points that are mentioned in that, even this part is there, right? So if I just mention, 1 second. All the, let's say, sites which are there in India. One second. Sun Temple, Konark, you're right, is mentioned as one of the sites. Okay. What you're saying? The Jagannath Temple. Okay. Okay. So in that sense, just I'll have a look at it. If there is a need to be changed, we'll do that. Okay. 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 Fine. I'll check that. Okay. I'll have a look at it. Okay. Let's come to question number. And if, okay, any other question, if that is there, we'll also have a look at. All right. So, okay. Now let's have a look at. Okay. Fine. With reference to the guilds, the Shrenis which are found, okay, question number 30, that is there with us. Okay, now when you look at the Shrenis, consider the following, which were the functions they were performing. Now we know that these guilds were doing a very important role from the trade perspective also. Okay, movement, trade, etc., that is going to happen. Regulation of trade practices, yes. Enforcement of quality standards of good. Financial assistance to the members in distress, okay. Participation in local governance, yes. And very important, the last one, authority to issue its own coins. This was also C. The answer is D5. Okay, we have seen all these 5 to have happened here in this case. Okay, so this is there, right? So again, keep this in mind. All right. Now next, let's have a look at, this is an easy question. With reference to the symbolism embedded in the architecture of Konark Sen Temple, let's see the statements. The wheel of the temple were designed to function as sun dials. See the name? Konark temples, the wheels were designed to function as sundials. The 24 wheels symbolically represent the hours of the day. Okay, so think of 24 hours and 24 wheels. This is also fine. The carving on these wheels depict the aspects of rituals and daily life. Okay, see, in these kind of questions, there is hardly anything which you think will be specifically wrong. Okay, be it the question on Shrenis or the questions on symbolism embedded in architecture. Okay, for questions like this, you can again directly apply your knowledge. The direct answer here also comes. All the 3 related to Konark Sen Temple are fine here. Okay, so that is also correct. Let's move ahead. Okay, now this is an important question also for the philosophy part. Okay, now what are we seeing here? We are seeing or looking at Jain philosophy, and we are seeing a term Syadvad. It states that every judgment is conditional and valid only in circumstances or perspectives. Okay, Syadvad holds that the reality consists of 7 fundamental substances, dravyas, which constitute the universe together. This is not correct because it talks about total 6 fundamental substances. We'll see those substances, and we'll also today understand what is Syadvad. What is its relation to Anekantvad? Okay, now when we look at Jain philosophy, right? The philosophy of Syadvad will talk about, or let's say Anekantvad. Anekant means Anek. Anek means many. So it simply holds that truth is not one single aspect, right? So there can be multiple, or the truth can be relative. That is the main part. No single one truth that it will talk about. Truth is relative. It is not absolute. Okay. Every statement is true only from a particular perspective. The Syad means in certain respect. And even if you look at modern times, this is one of the best understandings to have. Right? It is linked to Anekantvad. That is what I've said. Reality is multidimensional. Okay. They have multiple standpoints. A statement can have multiple valid viewpoints simultaneously. This is also true. All right. So keep this in mind as well. Okay. Now, first part is correct. Second part, Jainism recognizes 6 fundamental substances. It can be Jeev. Okay. the soul, Ugdula, that is the matter, Dharma, Adharma, Akash, space, Kal, time. These are the 6 Dravya that is there. Okay. Okay, I think Kumal Pushpam, your point is correct. I think one question, I'll just come back to it. Okay, this part, right? UNESCO World Heritage Site, Jagannath is not there. Okay. Correct. Because of that, our answer will change. The answer will become 1 and 2 only. Okay, so good point that you have mentioned here. Jagannath temple is not a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Okay, in fact, if we look from Odisha, okay, so the Konark temple of Odisha, that is correct. The Sun temple, Konark temple, is mentioned as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. That is correct. But Jagannath is not. Okay, so you are very right in pointing that. Okay, so in 25, then the answer will become, if 3 is wrong, because of this fact, the answer will become 1 and 2. Okay. Okay, so again, thank you also for pointing it out. So I just also cross checked. That is correct. Okay. In fact, I'll also tell you one of the recent updates on the UNESCO sites also. Then also we'll have a quick revision on that. Okay, so good. I think this question you have understand. So here statement 2 is incorrect. The moment statement 2 is incorrect, the answer becomes statement 1 is correct, but statement 2 is incorrect. I hope that part is clear. All right, now consider the pairs with respect to political divisions of land in the Pandyan kingdom. Okay, Talabogam, the land assigned to Brahmins, right? Then the Tatarkani, the land assigned to ironsmiths, and the Bhatta Vriti, okay, land that is granted to merchants for trade activities. Now this part is also not correct. It is not the land which is granted for the trade activities, right? This is wrong. In fact, this particular land which is there, it is also granted to the Brahmins, okay, for again some of these activities. Even this part is incorrect. So third statement becomes wrong. Okay, this is granted to the Brahmins for teaching, or let's say the educational purposes. This is not correct. The first 2 are correct. This correctly matched. The answer is 1 and 2. Okay, the type of land, the answer is here 1 and 2. Now, again an interesting question, right? You have Ramanujacharya. First point, and in fact, you should also prepare the philosophies that are there, right? Now, Ramanujacharya propounded the philosophical doctrine of Shuddha Advait. He emphasized the path of Prapti and invited downtrodden to Vaishnavism, authored Sri Bhashya. Now here the question is saying what is incorrect. Now there is a lot of confusion between 2 particular doctrines, okay, and we want to just see those doctrines one by one for ourselves. Fine. What are these 2 doctrines? One is Vishishta Advait and one is Shuddha Advait. Right. Now the question has asked us Shuddha, okay, Advait. Shuddha Advait is not by Ramanujacharya, is by Vallabhacharya. First thing. The first statement in that question is wrong. Okay, Vishisht means qualified, okay, special. Okay, Advait is non-dualism. It is by Ramanujacharya. Okay, now if we have to understand this in one line, okay, Vishisht Advait, Vishisht is very much specialized, very much qualified. Here the Brahman is one, okay, but this unity, etc., is seen in 2 things. One, you have a soul, and one, you have a physical manifestation of that word. Okay. So one, if you see this, Brahman is one, and this unity is qualified by the real existence of soul and the word. This is absolutely correct. But if you look at Shuddha Advait, here you will see that the Brahman alone is existing, because here it is a kind of a more pure form. The word is the manifestation and it is not an illusion. So there's a difference here in these 2. In Vishisht Advait, which is more qualified in nature, okay, here what you will see as, you will see that there is a soul also and there is a word also, and Brahman is one part of it. All right. Whereas in Shuddha Advait, what you will see this as, you will see this more in terms of directly the Brahman is existing alone. So there is a difference in these two. Okay. So what I want to tell you here, this is more qualified in nature, more specific. This is more pure in nature. Because it is more pure, that is what there is a mention only of the Brahman alone is existing. Fine. Now, he propounded the philosophical doctrine of Shuddha. This is wrong. Who had propounded it? This was propounded by, you already know, Shuddha Advait is related to Vallabhacharya. Now, he emphasized the path of, now the other two statements are correct. Prapti, which means complete self-surrender, invited the downtrodden to Vaishnavism. True, he authored Sri Bhashya. This is, which is incorrect. Only one statement is incorrect. That is the first one. All right. So here again, what you can also do is you can also just read more about the other doctrines. Okay, Dvait, Advait, Visishta Advait, Shuddha Advait, etc. And you will get more clarity on that part. All right. Question number 35. Now, this kind of question has also been asked in prelims and is a theme in mains also, where the question was on Gupta and Gupta numismatics. Numismatics is a study of coins. Now, this is an interesting question. You have Raghav, an amateur numismatist who ultimately knows about coins. Now, many coins in his early medieval collection appear cruder and less refined to Gupta. Why? Because Gupta age is known for its coins. Okay. Now, he studied this. A historian tells him that this is a trend in Indian coinage from 6th century to 12th century. What is the best observation? This line is directly picked up from your NCERT. Okay. The answer here is, we'll see this. Okay. That here multiple regional dynasties as I had actually come in. So coins, they came under the control of multiple regional dynasties. Okay. Simpler and less standardized coins were issued. This is a reason why this was an impact. So Gupta age may you see very good coins, but this will start to dilute later on. Why? There was multiple regional dynasties that will come up. So coins were very simple, they were less standardized. If you go back to the previous Gupta age, you will also see, okay, for example, Samudragupta also playing a veena in that coin. So coins were very much specialized, and not just Samudragupta, even other rulers also. Coins were more sophisticated. But as the time went on, this decreased, they were less standard and they were more simpler in nature. Okay, so that is the answer to this question. 35, the answer is B. Battle of Talikota. Okay, whenever you read about the Vijayanagar kingdom, you read about this very decisive particular battle. It is a watershed in South Indian history. Okay, and why is this a very much watershed movement in South Indian history? The answer to that lies in, it ended the political supremacy of the Vijayanagar Empire. Okay, so this was fought with the Talikota, okay, between the Vijayanagar kingdom and the combined armies of Deccan Sultanate, the Bijapur, okay, Ahmednagar, Golconda, okay. Ram Raya, the ruler of Vijayanagar, was commanding these forces. The main thing is the idea that it ended the supremacy of Vijayanagar Empire, which is why it's a very much watershed movement. In fact, you should also remember the year of the Battle of Talikota, 1565. Okay, if you go back to the UPSC PYQs from 1995 to 2025, you will also see a mention of Battle of Talikota. Okay. Between, see, if you're saying for question number 35D, a large scale inflow of foreign coins discouraged the indigenous rulers from issuing artistically elaborate coins. This is true, but more and more regional kingdoms had also come in. So the regional kingdoms part we cannot ignore. Okay, so many of these regional kingdoms, when they had come, they were not issuing the coins. In fact, if we have to talk about, right, you have the Harsha, okay, just after this, okay, the Kalchuri dynasty, etc., the Rajput clans, multiple regional clans which were there, right? So here main thing is the standardization of these coins reduced a lot. Okay, the motifs which were there prominent earlier, the motifs also reduced a lot. Okay, so the main thing is the regional dynastic mining actually reduced the level of sophistication that was seen. Okay, and to add to that can be a minor part is this, right? Because it is only after later on slowly and steadily you will have more and more invasion, and ultimately the start of, for example, later on the Delhi Sultanate, and then ultimately the Mughal rule later on, right? Here you will see a lot of fragmentation from the regional empires. That is the reason why we are saying this. Okay, now with reference to Vakataka dynasty, first of all, you should know where this is. So if you look at the map, the Vakataka dynasty played a very important part in Ajanta. This is a statement that is there, right? This whole, almost the central part is there. They were the successors of Satavahanas in the Deccan and the contemporaries of Guptas in the northern part. Okay, so this part is correct. In fact, I'll tell you one key fact. Okay, the founder of this dynasty, Vindhya Shakti, right, and name is derived from Vindhya Vasini. One fact you should remember is this. Second fact you should remember, where were they found? Now, the rule extended from southern edges of Malwa and Gujarat in the north to Tungabhadra river in the south. Absolutely correct. This is the range in which they were present. And the third thing, the most notable contribution of Vakatakas is association of construction of Ajanta caves. True. But in Ajanta caves, if I have to be more specific, the rock cut Buddhist viharas or chaityas, okay, this was built under the patronage of which Vakataka king, name is Hari Sena. Okay, so keep this also in mind. Now, I have shown you viharas and chaityas. You should be very clear in your mind the difference between viharas and chaityas. Okay, so here all the three statements are correct, but from questions like this, because generally, let's say if you have not prepared Vakataka dynasty, you will now know who is the founder, in which part they were there, successor, predecessor, etc. And lastly, what is their most notable contribution. Okay, so just from one question, this also helps you in good revision. That is what you should use as. So this should not be that now you go back and if you have not read Vakataka, then you go into the history and Wikipedia. Even these 4 or 5 points are good enough to answer a basic question on Vakatakas. Okay. Okay, interesting question. Very much you will see some of these communities in the news. Chin community primarily reside in the Chin state of Myanmar, Lushai Hills, Mizoram. Correct. Druze, unique religious minority. Okay. Roots, Ismailism. This is an offshoot of Shia Islam. Yes, this is true. Rohingya, we know of the Rakhine state, Myanmar. Also regarded as one of the most persecuted communities in the world's largest stateless population. This is also true. Okay, which is correctly matched. All the three are correctly matched. All right. Next, the Dharti Aba Janjati Gram Utkarsh Abhiyan. Consider the following statements. Now, three statements are there. Now, if you have a basic idea that this particular program is related to your tribal population and their better governance, now if you look at it, it covers only the villages located in aspirational districts with majority tribal population. Now, aspirational district program is related to Niti Aayog, and in this, those districts are there which have poor developmental indicators. But the program we are talking of is not just limited to this. Okay, it covers various villages, not only the aspirational districts. So this becomes wrong. It aims to build a cadre of motivated tribal grassroots leaders and officers. Not really. Okay, the main idea of the Dharti Aba Janjatiya program is to have inclusive and sustainable development in the tribal regions. As simple as that. Okay, and how do you do that? Whatever gaps are there in social infrastructure, healthcare, education, livelihoods. Okay, so there is multiple ministries are going to be working on it. Main idea is development of tribal communities and not creation of the tribal leaders as such. Okay, so here in this regard, this is also wrong. First, it's a central sponsored scheme implemented by the Ministry of Tribal Affairs. Okay, this is correct. And what is the main idea? Whatever gaps are there with respect to tribal governance, that is to be at least worked upon. What is correct here? Only one statement. Okay, so again, what you've learned here, central sponsored scheme. Central sponsored schemes, of course, center and the states are working in tandem. Central sector schemes wherein the central is doing 100% money allocation, implemented by MOTA, Ministry of Tribal Affairs. What is the main objective? To ensure inclusive, sustainable tribal governance. Okay, so that is there, and here various benefits. So identity, so Aadhaar card, Ayushman Bharat, financial inclusion, social security, employment, women, children, all these are related to this particular initiative. All right, so keep this in mind. Right, now let's move ahead. Consider the statements with respect to, let's say, Sabka Bima Sabki Raksha. Okay, so this is Amendment of Insurance Laws Act of 2025. This is very recent in that sense. Now, right, you see this is an article of 18th December 2025. So Sabki, this allows 100% FDI the insurance companies. Okay, why is this there? Deepen the insurance coverage, ease of doing business, improve regulatory oversight, improve the capital, etc. Right, best practices, everything is related to insurance sector to be leveraged, better competition, better efficiency, one by one. Right, now this is the idea of it. Right, now the act seeks to amend the LIC Act and Insurance Regulatory Development Authority Act. Aims to amend that. It lowers the net owned fund requirement for foreign reinsurers to facilitate greater participation. Also correct. That is also what is mentioned here. Net owned fund requirement reduced from 5,000 crore to 1,000 crore. Right, this is correct. It raises FDI limit in insurance companies, allowing full foreign ownership. And this is there, 100% FDI in insurance companies is allowed. All right, all the three are correct. The answer happens to be 1, 2 and 3. Right, so this is a question again related to your economy and again the current affairs of economy that you see here. Now, correct with respect to AI Alliance Network. It is, notice the keywords, informal, voluntary global network for collaboration. This is correct. If this was formal, mandatory, then the statement would have been wrong. We see many times UPSC using this trap. Okay. Second, all the member countries of G20 are part of it. Not really. In fact, only around 17 members are there. But the main thing is not all the countries are part of it. Okay. Last is, it is administered by World Artificial Intelligence. Okay, cooperation. So this is in fact incorrect. It is operationalized, okay, or administered by AI Alliance Russia and not this network WICO. Okay, so this is there. The answer, so this WICO is not correct. Second also is not correct. The answer is only 1. All right, with respect to AI Alliance Network. Right, now this is an interesting question about cobalt and India. Okay, now a question I'll ask you: the maximum cobalt, okay, the maximum concentration of cobalt is found where? Okay, where would you find the maximum concentration of cobalt? Okay, Humans King, you will get the solution. आपको solution की PDF. The moment the discussion ends, you will find it in that respective Telegram channel. So don't worry. Okay. Okay, very good. The answer is DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. This has been asked. 70% of world's cobalt is found there, right? DRC. Cobalt has various applications. Yes. Now, India has negligible primary production of cobalt. This is true, but let us see whether these statements are able to answer this. Cobalt in India occurs mainly in association with other ores and is not mined independently. This is absolutely true. So, when we look at other nickeliferous, limonite, laterite, copper ores, so it is independently not present, but it is found in association with some other ores. Okay, this is correct. It is not mined independently. Also a reason why you don't have enough primary production of it. The main keyword is primary production. This will be a secondary part, and this is very limited in its content. If it is very limited, you have to import it. India lacks significant economically viable cobalt reserves for large scale extraction. Absolutely true, which is why the dependence is on import. We don't have enough significantly economically viable cobalt reserves, and whatever is present, it is in association with some other reserve and it is not mined independently, right? So both these two statements are first of all correct, right? And this also helps explain this part also, that India has negligible primary production. So if you have very limited economically viable reserves, you will not have enough primary production. This is also true, right? So here the answer becomes A. Statement 2, statement 3 are correct, and the other part is also true. The theme was cobalt, has been asked in the PYQs. We have already seen that. Okay, now Global Hunger Index. This report has been asked once, okay, by the UPSC if you see the PYQ of 2016, but this is a more detailed question. Okay, now one by one. It is released by, so there are certain NGOs like, okay, the Welter Hunger Life and Concern Worldwide. This is true. They actually release the Global Hunger Index. So first part is absolutely correct. Okay. Second part, which is also mentioned here, right, that this index tracks and compares hunger levels across countries, okay, using a composite score based on nutrition and mortality indicators. This is correct. Based on nutrition and mortality, yes. Third, it is based on 4 indicators. This is also correct. All of which carry equal weight. This is incorrect. Okay, they don't have equal weight, which is what we'll see now. Now, it has 4 things, right? It talks about undernourishment, 1, child stunting, 2, child wasting, child mortality. Okay, now undernourishment, okay, child wasting, sorry, child stunting, child wasting, mortality. 4 parameters are there. But what is the index? 1/3 is nourishment, 1/6 stunting, 1/6 wasting, 1/3 child mortality. Okay, so what is the overall contribution? This is 1/3 contribution. This is 1/6. This is 1/6. This is 1/3. So child mortality and undernourishment are same contribution, whereas child stunting and child wasting is 1/6. Both of them are same and they're lower as compared to these two, right? So it is based on 4 indicators. This is correct, but all of them carry equal weight. That is incorrect. Okay, so this becomes wrong, first of all, right? Other 2 statements are correct. The question is saying which of the following is incorrect. The answer is only 1 is incorrect. Answer should be 43. Okay, now India ranks 102 out of 123 countries. What is India's score? Is 25.8. This is just additional information, and this falls in the category of serious. 20 to 34.9 will be under the category of serious. Okay, so please keep this in mind. All right, so that is there. Now, this is 12%. This is actually the findings of the report. But if you are getting a question, generally you will be asked on the parameters. Remember the name of the parameters: undernourishment, stunting, wasting, mortality, and what is the individual weight. If they ask you this, who releases this? What is India's contribution? Everything in one question. Try to summarize. Okay, this is the Global Hunger Index 2025. Right? What is a grey rhino event? Okay, for example, grey rhino in the Western Ghats. Grey rhino event is something that is very high risk, that is very highly probable to happen, yet it is getting ignored. So you know it is going to be very problematic, right? So a highly probable, high impact risk that is often ignored despite that being visible. You know it is going to happen, yet actions have not been taken. Okay, that is the grey rhino event. Okay, there are certain black swan events also. For example, COVID-19. Nobody knew COVID-19 is going to happen. COVID-19 is not a grey rhino event. For that we use the term black swan event. Okay, nobody knew it is going to happen. Okay, people were totally unprepared for it. Okay, so just remember that term also, right? What's a grey rhino? High probable, high impact risk event. Okay, now United Nations Convention Against Cybercrime. Okay, it recently adopted a resolution 79/243. Let's have a look at what is mentioned in this particular convention or this particular resolution. Okay, the very first thing, in fact, you have to remember this is words. Okay, the first legally binding global convention for cyber crimes. So legally binding is also true. In fact, I can also add this is words first global legally binding convention related to cybercrime. First statement is correct. It operates within the UN framework. True. You have UN, you have Office on Drugs and Crime, Convention Against Cybercrime, very much in news. Okay. Now the headquarter, this is actually factually wrong. The headquarter is in Vienna. Vienna is in Austria. So this is wrong. India is among the initial signatories. If there is a convention, either they'll ask you legally binding or they will ask you whether India has signed it or not. Okay, India did participate in the discussion related to the convention, but India has not signed it. India has not signed it. First statement is correct, second is incorrect, third is incorrect. How many statements are incorrect? Only two. Only two statements here are incorrect. The answer is B, 45. And again, interesting question. If you know the map, you will be able to solve this question. Okay. Countries which have a coastline on the Caspian Sea. Some of you have made a mnemonic on Caspian Sea. Okay. Is it Tariq? Something like this. If you're not sure on what this T is, Asha, how many of you remember Caspian Sea as, or what is your mnemonic for Caspian Sea? And what is the T? Is it Turkey? Or is it something else? Second is the country is a member of INSTC. INSTC was a question of 2025. International North-South Transport Corridor. Now, if you look at Caspian Sea, right, the answer, it is not surrounded by Turkey, right? That T is Turkmenistan. Turkey is beyond this. So, you have Iran, Turkmenistan, if you see all the surrounding countries, Azerbaijan, okay, Russia, right? So, Turkey is not there, fine. So, this, if you have thought that T is Turkey, then it is wrong, right? T is Turkmenistan, which is surrounding Caspian Sea. So, how many conditions are satisfied? Condition 1 is satisfied by 3 countries, Iran, Azerbaijan, okay, that you look at, and Kazakhstan, right? Next is the country is the member of INSTC, International North-South Transport Corridor. Okay, now INSTC, if you look at, okay, Iran, Azerbaijan, okay, and it goes to all these parts, right? This is satisfied by all the countries. In fact, all Iran, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Turkey, all are related to INSTC. What is the limiting factor? This. How many satisfy both the conditions? 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so Iran, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, they would satisfy the condition. Okay. So here the answer becomes C, 46, the C, both. That is the answer to this question. Okay, now Maratha military landscape. Now, very important. This was added or inscribed to UNESCO's WHS. This was the 44th entry. All right. Now, if you look at the recent, in fact, if you look at the UNESCO, you will see cultural sites, you will see natural sites, total 7 natural sites we have in India, and you will see 1 mixed site, that is Kanchenjunga. Okay. Now, the most recent to be added is Maratha military landscapes of India, okay, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, 2025. Previously, you had Moidams, the burial related to a home dynasty in Assam, has been asked on this part. You have sacred ensembles of Hoysalas, okay, from Karnataka. Shantiniketan, West Bengal, okay, these are some of the recent months, 2023, 2020. Before this, you had Dholavira from Gujarat, okay. Now, let's see this. It is a network of forts strategically spread across, please note, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu. It is mentioned Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu. No, Karnataka is not there. First becomes wrong, okay. Next, the fort where Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj was crowned as the crown of Maratha kingdom, okay, is a part of this, okay. In fact, if you read the forts connected to Maratha, to Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, is commissioned, this is true, okay. In fact, if you look at the image, you have the Raigad fort mentioned here, this is correct. Third, as a part of now third statement, the moment you read it, you already know the answer. If something is a part of UNESCO World Heritage Site, it is under direct protection of UNESCO, not at all, okay. The protection will remain of the respective country. It will be protected by India as per its specific laws. If it is getting a UNESCO tag, okay, it simply means recognition, monitoring, advisory support, that it is getting, but it is not getting protected, directly protected by UNESCO. Whatever country's site is added to the UNESCO list, that respective country is going to manage it, as simple as that. This statement will be wrong. There is no such condition. that under the direct protection of UNESCO, right? This also becomes wrong. So here, what is the correct answer to this? First is wrong, okay. Third is wrong. The answer is only one, A. 47, the answer is A, only one is correct. Now, energy is released. Now, this question tests your application of fission and fusion, okay. In fact, in nuclear fission, right, that you generally see in the reactors, right, you have nuclear fission. Nuclear fusion, you have enormous amounts of energy. Think of the sun, of the stars, they emit the energy through nuclear fusion reaction, right? Now, energy is released in a nuclear fission reaction process, which splits a heavier, unstable atomic nucleus into a smaller, okay, nuclei. That is correct. That is what happens in a fission, right? So, what is there in a fission? Heavy nucleus, etc., is there. For example, uranium-235 will become to smaller parts. It releases a lot of energy, right? There's a particular chain reaction which we want to build in, right? So this is correct. Second, let's see, energy is released in a nuclear fusion process which combines light atomic nuclei to form a heavy nucleus, okay. So if you look at it, right, this is what exactly happens in a nuclear fusion reaction, okay. Light, it will combine deuterium, tritium will ultimately combine to form helium. It releases more energy. We know E is equal to mc square in this part only, right? So this is also true, okay. So now, when you understand this whole part, right, the two atomic nuclei combine to form a heavier nucleus, a lot of energy is getting released, right? E is equal to mc square. Now, when the mass of resulting product nucleus is smaller than the mass of reacting, energy is released, okay. So both parts explain to you how energy is released. The question is also asking you how energy is released overall, okay. So I think this part, so statement 2 is overall correct, okay. In fact, see, statement 1 is correct and statement 3 is actually helping us explain statement number 1 also. And in fact, when you read about the nuclear fusion reaction, the statement number 2, this is absolutely correct, okay. And we also get to understand this whole part, right, how this is correct, right. Now, statement 1 is correct, statement 2 is correct, and statement 3 explains both of them, right. This is individually correct, we also know this is individually correct, and statement 3, whatever is the resulting product, smaller, etc., getting released, right. So answer here is A, right. Now, in case somebody still wants to read more about this, today only, okay, we have a particular lecture on nuclear technology. Whatever doubts you have, it's a very comprehensive lecture in the YouTube itself, and you can read more about that part also, okay. So both can be understood through this part only, right, if you want to read more about it. Now let's see some other questions also. Now we'll also increase the speed slightly so that we are able to cover all the remaining questions. Now, which of the following best describes the term swarm robotics, okay. Swarm robotics is, you know what is a swarm? Let's say you see a swarm of bees, multiple bees will be there in one particular part. So when I'm saying swarm robotics, I'm saying multiple group of robots are there, okay. They are collectively performing some complex tasks through decentralized coordination, okay. Normally you only think of independent robots operating. Here you have a mix of multiple robots who are operating here, okay. So both of them can be ultimately mentioned in this case, all right. So that can also be mentioned here as one, all right. Now, so 49 is there. Unknown, see, I'll just again look at your statement at the end of our discussion, right. If there is anything that has to be reflected on, let us first complete this. Any other question that you people will flag on, we'll have a look at it, fine. Okay. Okay. Now, I think this some of you would have done. Direct energy weapons able for countering how many of the above threats? Unmanned aerial systems, rockets, artillery shells, and stealth submarines. See, the directed energy weapons, main thing for them to work is they work in the line of sight. If something is visible, then they'll be able to work on it very well. Stealth submarines, they are by default, you're not able to see them. So direct energy weapons, they are not able to work on them. Artillery shells, they will be working. Rockets, yes. UAVs, etc. Yes. Whatever is visible, they'll be able to work, but they'll not be able to work on something that is hidden from the visual range. Okay. So again, DEWs are weapons that focus energy. It can be laser, microwave instead of physical projectiles. Okay. They can heat a particle, they can melt a particle, disable its electronics. Okay. Now, for example, Israel's Iron Beam is there. You can use it against drones, missiles, rockets, anything, right? Artillery shells, right? Very fast, very precise, very cost effective. But the challenge is it requires line of sight. Okay. Not suitable for these submarines, etc. It is not very suitable underwater also. So directed energy weapons are specially useful in countering sub of 3. Okay. Next, reverse osmosis. Where is it used? You know what is osmosis? RO water, right? So again, you will have a particular membrane, a semi-permeable membrane. The water is passed. So again, the particles extra, they can be collected. Water can be filtered, right? It can be used in. Can it be used for water reuse in pharma? Yes. Desalination? Yes. Radioactive waste treatment? Yes. All the three it can be used. This can be used in all the three. Absolutely yes. Okay. Right. So even this part is correct. It can be used in all the three. Okay. Now, 51, the answer is D. 52, which of the following is non-communicable disease? Okay. Cardiovascular disease, if somebody one has it, is not directly communicated. These are all course the lifestyle diseases. Okay. So this is there. In fact, see, directly you can answer malaria, tuberculosis, etc. These are communicable diseases. Diabetes, non-communicable diseases. The question is saying which of the following is a non-communicable disease? Okay. So the answer to this question, which of the following is non-communicable? Okay. The answer that directly becomes that 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Okay. So let's say chronic pulmonary, right? So here you can think of certain lung diseases. Okay. Pulmonary diseases. The answer becomes 3. Only 3. These 2 are communicable. The first 3 are non-communicable. Okay. Next, in quantum technologies, which of the following is the common characteristics of term B84, E8, E91 and SARG04 talked about in the media? Okay. So when we are talking of these specific terms, sometimes you can get direct questions on these parts. So basically, what are these? Okay, these are certain important protocols which enable the two parties to generate shared secure key. Okay, to detect eavesdropping. What is the meaning of eavesdropping? Okay, let's say somebody is wanting to intercept the communication. Okay, so here it is very much shared. It is secure. Main thing is secure. It can detect eavesdropping. So if somebody is wanting to hack or is wanting to take care of, let's say, listen to the communication, you are able to understand this. The main thing is this is related to QKD, quantum key distribution. Talking of quantum technology, so you know the difference between the conventional computing and quantum. In normal computing, you have bits, zeros and ones. In quantum computing, you have qubits, can be both zeros and ones. Okay, very much faster, more secure. You have terms like we've seen quantum key distribution, more secure term of engagement. Okay, and in your basic current affairs, you should know terms like quantum tunneling, for example. What is okay, quantum supremacy? All right, some basic terms also you should have a look at and understand. All right, fine. So this is your 53rd. Now, again, a question on science and tech. We have to talk about two things: whether a particular particle is hypothetical, and second, if it is its own antiparticle. Now, if let's say there's a particle can be hypothetical also, or a particle can be seen, which means something that has been observed. Okay, something that has been observed. You have seen this in an experiment. Otherwise, a particle can be hypothetical. Second thing, certain particles have their dedicated antiparticle, but in some particles, that particle is its own antiparticle. Okay. Now, all of this is ultimately related to your particle physics. Okay, you've heard about terms like Higgs boson, Majorana was in news, neutrino, anti-neutrino, etc. Sometimes you hear about. So the question is going into the very basics of it. Which of the following is a hypothetical particle and which is also its own antiparticle? Fine, one by one I'll have a look at. So you have either a particle is confirmed, okay, or a particle is hypothetical, right? Now, what is the confirmed particle? Quarks, leptons, Higgs boson, okay, photon, etc. Some of these are confirmed particles, but you also have certain hypothetical particles also. Okay, we could have graviton, axion, etc. So that is one. Now, if I'm looking at neutrino, okay, that is the first that is mentioned here, neutrino. Now, neutrino is satisfying both the conditions. Why? Oh, sorry, it is not satisfying both the conditions. The reason is, first of all, it's a real particle. It has been detected. Okay, first thing, which means it is not a hypothetical particle, neutrino. And second, it is not its own antiparticle. There is a dedicated antiparticle for it, which is anti-neutrino. So neutrino does not fulfill any of the conditions. Now you have Majorana. Okay, in case of Majorana, it actually fulfills both. It is hypothetical also, and it acts as its own antiparticle also. Both are correct. This is true. In case of Higgs boson, like if you've seen, it is a confirmed particle, so it cannot be hypothetical. Even if one condition is not fulfilled, both the conditions cannot be fulfilled, right? While so Higgs boson has been confirmed experimentally, and this was a huge news when we in the CERN, and it has its own antiparticle. The second condition is true here. Okay, now what is the idea of antiparticle? If you know, it will have the same mass, but the main difference is the opposite charge it will have. So let's say the plus will have its own minus also. That is the antiparticle to that, right? So coming back, which of the following is a hypothetical particle? It is only Majorana, which has its own antiparticle. Higgs boson also has its, Majorana also has its, but what fulfills both the conditions? It is only Majorana, and Majorana was in news. Only one fulfills both the two conditions, which means it has its, it is a hypothetical particle and it has its antiparticle. Okay, that is there. Now, if this particular part you are totally not aware of, you don't know much about this particle physics, I would again encourage, take out 30-40 minutes or 1 hour and read about it. Okay, has been in the news, so you cannot ignore it. If those of you who have any of the static portions which are slightly lacking in nature, we have a recorded bootcamp batch, or we have ongoing RRR rapid revision classes. You can cover some of these topics from there also. Okay, in this discussion, okay, if I explain to you all this discussion would be more than 5-6 hours, right? So that will also not be a very good use of your time. The idea is to again give you the answer also, give you basic information. Other things, we'll also share the PDF of solution of this also, right? So we can use that also, fine, for more idea, that part. Now, which of the following statement correctly describes the primary advantage of using photoactive, natural, protein semiconductor over traditional silicon semiconductors? Now, normally speaking, we had semiconductors which were silicon based, the traditional ones. Now you have photoactive, natural, protein semiconductors. Now imagine if we, so here what is there? Traditional biology plus traditional electronics. Normally electronics was associated only with, let's say, semiconductors. Silicon based semiconductors were there. Okay, but if using biology and combining electronics, if we are able to make photoactive natural semiconductors, the question is saying, what is the primary advantage of these semiconductors, right? What is the good use of these semiconductors? So the main thing is, first, they will be natural. Okay, we can be more targeted based on this, and if they are able to have some conduction related properties, they're going to be very much helpful. Fine. So main thing is they are natural, please under main, right? Protein based. Main thing is they will be biocompatible. What? Silicon will not always be biocompatible. If you want to use a semiconductor, okay, inside somebody's body, there can be certain issues. Here, it can be biocompatible very much. Okay. Second, it can be used in medical sensors. A lot of sensors which are used can be more harmful, and they cannot be very good semiconductors also. But if you have a natural based one, for example, if you're wearing something, okay, or etc. on a solar panel, etc., it is biocompatible, fine. And second, implantable medical sensors which are there, if you know more about certain particular attributes, they can be used as a medical sensor also, okay. So here it will have multiple properties because of this, okay. So here the answer is E, right? They are biocompatible and they can be used implantable medical sensors, right? The answer 55 is. Now, what is correctly matched? Okay, bacteriophage. The name is, phage means to eat, something that eats a bacteria. It is bacteriophage. We think it's a bacteria. No, it is a virus. Correct? Infect and replicate within a bacteria, so they ultimately end up eating the bacteria. Bacteriophage. Okay. Antimicrobial peptides. Okay, they contain proteins. Peptides, yes, they will contain the proteins. Can they disrupt the bacterial membranes? They can do that. Okay. Now, license. Okay, the license, and these are RT license. Lysine, the activity, okay, lysis is to kill, okay. These are certain enzymes. Can they kill bacterial pathogens? Correct. Here all the three are correct. In fact, if I just break down the word, if you think of lysosomes, suicide bags, they're able, right, they kill themselves. Lysins related to killing part, engineered enzymes are there, they can kill the bacterial pathogens. All the three are correct. All right. Now, for blockchain, from a governance point of view, this is the biggest update. The update is National Blockchain Framework. Okay. Now, first I'll just share with you the update, right? National Blockchain Framework, strengthening governance through blockchain technology, right? Whenever you read about blockchain, you read about all the keywords related to blockchain, right? Decentralized, peer-to-peer, right? Can help in smart contracts, transparent, distributed ledger, okay, secure, immutable. Any change that you will do, it will change all the other remaining chains, which is why as a transaction of records, it ensures a lot of transparency, fine. So in this case, what is there? There's a national blockchain framework, right? And it is deployed by NIC data centers. Now, what are the core components of it? This is being asked today in this question, okay. There is NBF Lite, there is Pramanik, there is a national blockchain portal, and there is a stack, okay, Vishwasya blockchain stack, that has been asked, right? Again, this is directly from the PIB. If you look at it, there is a technology stack where that is Vishwasya blockchain stack, okay. This is at the core. This is going to find or make the technical foundation for blockchain. Number one, there is NBF Lite, okay. So there is a sandbox version of stack, again for startups and academia, capacity building, etc. And lastly, you have Pramanik. So for app verification, okay, how to use blockchain, mobile devices, all of that is mentioned in this case. Now, again, now let's have a look at it, okay. Now, you have Vishwasya, you have NBF Lite, and you have Pramanik. One by one, what is actually related to which part, we will have a look at, right? Now, infrastructure as a shared service, correct, okay. NBF Lite platform for applications without requiring full scale deployment, that is also correct. Pramanik can verify authenticity and source of mobile, that is what we just had read about, okay. It is app verification. This is for starters and academia, and this is the overall, right? It has blockchain as a service. Sometime back, UPSC had asked you a question, SaaS, software as a service. It can be PaaS, platform as a service, right? So here, blockchain as a service, distributed infrastructure, permissioned blockchain layer, okay. This is what was asked in the question, right? That only verified or authorized participations can join or validate the transactions in this case. Fine. So here all the three are correct. This again is a more factual question inspired from current affairs. So either you will get a conceptual question on blockchain. If they want to ask you something related to the current affairs part and the governance part, then they may ask you a question on national blockchain framework. These are the three main components of it, okay. The last main component of this was a particular portal, a national blockchain portal for this, right? Okay. Now, which of the following is the necessary condition for multiplication of any alien piece of a DNA in an organism? Okay. Now, for example, let's say there's a DNA, any alien piece that comes to it. Okay. What is needed is it has to have a specific sequence. Okay. DNA can only multiply if the replication starts, and replication can only start at a specific site. You need to have this ORI, origin of replication. Fine. So this alien DNA, whatever is coming from the outside, it must attach to a chromosome, or it should be inside. Basically, the condition is at the origin of replication. Replication is where it will multiply. Okay. So if there is no origin of replication, there will be no replication. If there is no replication, there is no multiplication. Fine. So for this, again, if we have to see question number 58, what is the main answer, the reason here? The alien piece must become the part of the chromosome, yes, which has a specific sequence known as origin of replication. Absolutely correct. Okay. Now, it must contain antibiotic resistance genes, not necessary. It must contain a promoter sequence, not necessary. It must contain genes for coding restriction enzymes, not necessary. In fact, these three are more specific in nature, whereas the first statement is more general in nature. So if I think of must be a part of the chromosome and must have a sequence, because without a origin of replication, it cannot replicate. If it cannot replicate, it cannot multiply. All right, keep this in mind. Now, there are some questions related to modern history. Okay, which of the following were the demands raised by moderates during the freedom struggle? All right, holding of elections, separation of judiciary, extension of permanent settlement, appointment of Indians. Some of the basic questions which are there, I'll directly tell you the answer to this. Here, all the four are correct. The answer is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, question number 59. So here the answer is all the four are correct, and these are all the demands raised by the moderates. Of course, there's a huge list of demands which were raised by moderates. Okay, who are moderates? What is the difference? Okay, you should know the prominent personalities. Okay, the 3 P's, prayers, petitions are being used by moderates, and the criticisms of moderates by the extremists. Fine. Now, this is again a question with reference to Royal Navy revolt. Which flags were hoisted by the rebel naval ratings on the mast of their ships? Which flags were hoisted, right? Now, anything that is not related directly to, not be hosted. Okay, that should be an idea. This flag was hoisted, yes. Muslim League was also hoisted. In fact, Communist parties, this was also hoisted. Now, Union Jack is a symbol related to the overall the colonies, right? Union Jack is a symbol not directly related to us. That was not directly hoisted. That is the number one part, right? So it is actually a colonial symbol, in fact, right? We wanted independence, so we would not be hosting this. It was not there. And red flag of the International Socialist Movement also. Okay. So this also was not overall hoisted. The answer is 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Indian INC, Muslim League, and Communist Party, these three were the flags that were hoisted. Fine. Now, C. Rajagopalachari, you have heard about the CR formula also. Question is asking which of the following is incorrect. Now, personality based questions are asked, and this question is almost in the roots of modern history. Many things are asked. He led the Vedaranyam Salt Satyagraha, Madras, correct. The CR formula proposed after the war population of majority regions in northwest side whether to separate also fine. And I think most of you would be aware that he founded the Swatantra Party, which advocated market-oriented economic policy, right? In fact, this is also correct. The question is saying what is incorrect? No statement is incorrect. Okay, the answer should be none. Okay, so for this, I think not much to explain here. Again, these are kind of questions chronology based, fine. So here also, if you are aware, and in fact, this is a relatively easier question. Okay, if you look at the points that have been asked, okay, Indian Factories Act somewhere around 1890s. Okay, Lahore resolution very much late, I think around. Okay, Gandhi Irwin Pact, if I say around roughly 1932 or so. Now the defining part is the visit of Prince Wales, okay, to India. Okay, so that is somewhere around the 1910s and 20s in between. If I now arrange it, okay, Right. So here then the answer will be 3 followed by 2. Okay, I think okay, not this is actually 1. Still the answer is correct. 9, 3, 2, 1, 4. Okay, the answer is A. Lahore resolution is at the end, although that will not help you because that is there, 4 is there in all the 4. Okay, but if you know the second Indian Factories Act is 1891, you will have only A and C to be confused with. Okay, Gandhi and Irving Pact, many of you will know, and the Prince of Wales, the visit when it was. Okay, I was thinking 1910 to 20s, but the exact one is 19. So you will directly arrive at the answer 62. The answer is A. Now, the Borsad Satyagraha. Okay, led by Sardar Vallabh Patel, was launched primarily to protect against. Okay, the main thing is it was a punitive tax to finance anti-equity measures. This is correct. Okay, Borsad Satyagraha is also something that you sometimes read about. Okay, other things, indigo, etc., are not directly related. Salt production is not related. Main thing is it was a punitive tax to finance anti-equity measures. That is the right one. Okay, and this the year, if you want, this is 1922 to 1923. Keep this in mind. All right. Now, important Hindu patriot Harish Chandra Mukherjee, we are talking of the Indigo Rebellion. Okay. Now, let's see some of the statements here. Unlike the 1857, it was a non-violent, non-cooperative civil disobedience. It lacked a central leadership. This was also criticism. It characterized a decentralized organization, right? Harish Chandra Mukherjee described the plight of peasants paper. Okay, so all the 3 overall are correct. Not a very difficult question. Indigo Rebellion has been asked, or the theme has been asked previously. Answer is 3. Which of the following places were the first Danish trading settlement in India? Okay, so here, not Pulicat, Serampore, Surat. The answer is Franque Bar, the first Danish trading settlement. And in case you should also prepare the other settlement, the first Portuguese or the British, etc. So make a list of it. You can also write the year and the place. So sometimes if a very factual question is asked on that front, so you will be prepared. What is the answer to that, right? That is there. Now, I think these are the questions of modern history. Now we move to questions on environment. Okay, in environment, some questions are doable, some questions are more difficult and more applied. There is a mixture of questions on environment. That is generally what you see in UPSC also, right? Not all the, because the difficulty is generally higher. You will see almost a similar level of paper in environment also. Now, this will be a tough question for those who are not totally aware about the concepts. Now, the warming impact of black carbon is multiple times greater when it lands on ice or snow as compared to when it is suspended in the atmosphere. This is correct. In fact, many of you would be aware about a phenomenon known as Arctic amplification. Okay, in fact, for that, one of the reason is black carbon from ships depositing on the snow or the ice. This is true. Okay, now, whenever there is black carbon, okay, so black carbon is generally causing the warming part, but you also have certain organic sulfur and you have certain SO2 particles. These particles are generally your certain aerosols, and they can also counteract and they can cause the cooling effect. So some of the warming effect is caused by black carbon, but the cooling effect, etc., can be caused by SO2, okay, sulfur dioxide and organic carbon, which is again released in the same process, which is why they are also known as primary co-pollutants. Okay, now for many of you this would have been a information that you were hearing first time. If that is the case, this is a new information. Okay, and this is a more trickier question on black carbon. So this actually is a correct statement. Organic carbon and SO2 are primary co-pollutants that counteract the warming of the effects of black carbon, right? That is true. UNFCCC is the first international treaty to specifically address black carbon. Not at all. In fact, if you know, you have done or you have remembered black carbon, it's a short-lived climate pollutant. Here you have methane, you have black carbon, tropospheric ozone, okay, and you have hydrofluorocarbons. Okay, now this black carbon, there is a specific convention related to this, but not UNFCCC. Cut down UNFCCC. UNFCCC will talk more about CO2. Okay, so black carbon has been dealt, okay, by a separate convention. Okay, this is known as the RCAP Convention of 1917, actual piece of information. Okay, and here the name is, this is long range transboundary air pollution, right? This Clare trap is talking about the long range transboundary air pollution, right? It is again talking about air pollution also, and it talks also about black carbon, but black carbon was done in the later amendment. Okay, in the later amendments it also spoke about how to address black carbon, but broadly speaking this particular convention is related to air pollution, transboundary air pollution. This Clare trap, keep this in mind. So even 3 is not correct, 2 is not correct, the only answer correct is 1. Okay, this is more difficult questions on environment, but you have a lot of doable questions also. Have a look at them also. Here the answer is only 1 is correct. Now, which of the following is generally considered non-volatile? What is meaning of volatile? Volatile means something that is easily movable, right? Non-volatile is something that is stored for a very long time. The question is on carbon sequestration. Carbon sequestration is the storage of carbon. Wherever carbon can be stored for a very relatively long time, undisturbed, will be non-volatile method. Other methods will be volatile methods, right? Now, if you look at technological sequestration, that is going to be a non-volatile method. Okay, you can store it for a very long time. Bioenergy with carbon capture, etc. This is also stored for a long time. Carbon mineralization, when carbon is stored as, let's say, carbonated minerals, okay, in certain basaltic rocks, this is also stored for a very long time. This is also non-volatile. This is correct, this is correct, this is correct. If it is stored in geological, which means certain rocks is also stored for a long time, this is also correct. But if I'm saying biological sequestration, this is more volatile. Okay, because these plants, these trees, the soil, all of that part is more prone to wind and air abrasion or erosion. This is not going to be a very permanent source. Okay, so be it forests, be it soils, any of these oceans, okay, they are very much volatile because a lot of decomposition can happen here. So out of these 5, biological, this is volatile in nature. Other 4 are non-volatile. So the answer will be only 4. Achha, sorry. Okay. 66 mein the answer will be B. Okay. 2 statements are correct. You are right. Those who have pointed it out. Statement 1 is correct and statement 2 is correct. Okay, I think I've made a cross mark, so I thought both are wrong. Yes, you are right. Those who have pointed it out, absolutely correct. 66, the answer will be 2 are correct. Okay, 1 is also correct and 2 is also correct. Third one is wrong. Question number 67. It is C. I hope that part is correct. Main thing is to understand this. Now, in the UPSC PYQs, they have not gone into this much of depth. They've only considered till here only, that what are the main methods of carbon sequestration. But if you are even aware about this part, this also helps. Okay, so that is one. Now, Minamata Convention is for mercury pollution. At the COP6 of Minamata, a new mandatory, new global tax on primary mercury mining was established. Nothing of this sort has been talked about, not at all. This is just to distract you. In fact, in the COP6 of Minamata, very ordinary or basic points have been talked about related to dental amalgam, related to skin whitening creams, how to reduce the consumption, how to reduce the consumption of methane related, not methane, mercury related products. There is no global or mandatory global tax as such, not at all. This is wrong. Okay, so 68, first statement is wrong. Okay, now second statement, the WHO and Indian standard for mercury in drinking water. Now, many times WHO and Indian standards are not same. In air pollution, Indian standard is more relaxed, WHO is more strict. But in this case of drinking water, it is the same. This is fine. First is wrong, second is correct. Third, gold mining is a major source of mercury pollution. This is absolutely correct, a general kind of a statement. In fact, the most specific is artisanal small gold mining, okay, which roughly contributes to 40%, is the biggest man-made source of mercury. Okay, now the question is saying which is incorrect, right? So first one is incorrect. So here in question number 68, the answer becomes A. right? Answer becomes A. Now, which of the following is related to carbofuran? Okay, in case somebody has done the BRS, Basel, Rotterdam, Stockholm Conventions, well, you should know the answer to this because carbofuran is in news this year. Okay, unlike the pesticide DDT, its effect on wildlife is almost instantaneous, yes, and it is very harmful for the wildlife. DDT takes a longer time to act on the wildlife. This directly acts on it. It is very dangerous. In fact, carbofuran is also attributed to the deaths of many vultures also. It has a high potential for leaching into groundwater. This is true. Now, the catch lies in DDT is a POP, persistent organic pollutant. So, DDT is covered under Stockholm Convention. Carbofuran is not under this. In fact, carbofuran is going to be covered under the Rotterdam Convention. Right? And the moment I say it is under the Rotterdam Convention, we are talking about this is a hazardous chemical or a pesticide. Because Rotterdam Convention talks about hazardous chemicals and pesticides. In fact, what is Basel Convention? Transboundary movement of hazardous waste. Rotterdam, hazardous chemicals or pesticides. Stockholm is persistent organic pollutants. In this question, you have carbofuran. Carbofuran is in the news because in 2025 BRS on Conference of Parties, carbofuran was also listed as a hazardous chemical and a pesticide. So it is not under Stockholm, it is under Rotterdam Convention. Statement 3 is wrong. Okay, other two are general statements only. Okay, the second statement is correct. So the answer here is C2. Now, if this is a very basic question on ecological succession, right? What happens when a community moves from pioneer, which is the initial stage, to the final stage, climax? Biomass increases, yes. Species diversity increases, but may decline. It can decline. It can also stabilize because in the climax community, which is the final state, it is going to stabilize. Okay, so it will increase. It is going to stabilize. In some cases, can also decline. This is also correct. Rate of biogeochemical cycling decreases. Okay, so here what we are seeing here is the third statement, right? If you see the rate of the particular cycling, okay, the overall complexity will increase, okay, but slowly and steadily, because now overall complexity has been restored in this case. Okay, so here the rate will decrease, it will not increase. Okay, because major part of cycling will happen in the initial stages. As we move from this part to the last part, okay, the overall, okay, the overall I'm saying rate will typically decrease. And here it is not just cycling, it is the rate of biogeochemical cycling, because in the initial stages it will be very high. Okay, but from this stage to the final stage, when you come up, it will overall decrease, the rate will decrease. That is correct. Okay, but I'm not saying the complexity of the biodiversity is decreasing. Complexity will increase, biomass will increase, total biomass, but the rate of biogeochemical cycling will decrease. Okay, that is correct overall. So we can observe all the three in this case. Okay, 71 and 72 and other ones, if you have just read the concept well, you will be able to answer. Dekho, question is asking which of the following will form a mycorrhiza association. This year mycorrhiza again is in the news because mycorrhiza related development have been awarded, okay, global prizes also. Mycorrhiza is what? It is fungus plus roots of higher plants. Okay, now which can form mycorrhiza? You should have fungus and you should have plants, at least. That is only mycorrhiza. Purely fungus cannot be mycorrhiza. Okay, because mycorrhiza is a symbiotic association. So fungus and corals, no, they have such a association. Two different fungus don't also have a mycorrhiza association. Fungus has this with plants, but fungus can have it also with photosynthetic plants also, and even non-photosynthetic. Okay, so here this is correct. Only this is correct. The answer becomes one only. In this question, your answer actually becomes one only. Okay, so that is it there. Just give me, just plug on the charger 1 second. How many of you followed till question 71? And I hope you are very clear with the definition of what is mycorrhiza. It has nothing to do with corals here, because why? In corals you already have a symbiotic association of a zooxanthellae, okay, with a coral polyp. Okay, so that should not be a distraction. Two separate fungus will never be a mycorrhiza, because for that I already need to have a separate plant. Now a normal photosynthetic plant can also be there, and a non-photosynthetic plant can also be there. Okay, so the answer is one only. Fine. Okay, good. Now this is also a relatively easier question. I will say commensalism. What is commensalism? See, here it is plus plus, both are getting benefited. Mycorrhiza. Commensalism is plus and zero. One is getting benefited, other one is not being impacted. Now, zooxanthellae, coral, this is plus plus. This should not be in my answer. Okay. Fish attaching to sharks for locomotion feeding. This we have done many times in our classes also. This is correct. Right here, these small fish, they are benefited. The sharks are bigger. The fish is getting benefited. Small fishes attaching itself to a shark. Correct. Epiphytes, orchards in the tropical trees, they only take support, they don't take nutrients. Commensalism. Barnacles attaching to whales, again commensalism. Herons, okay, these are birds, okay, following certain cattle for these insects. This is again commensalism. So when you see here, all the remaining four are commensalism. Commensalism is plus and zero. I hope that part is very clear to you. All right. First one was mutualistic association. The answer is only 4. Now this question, if you even directly apply Trinetra, some and some, you will directly get your answer. Okay, but let's say if you even read your question and apply knowledge, some mangroves deal with salt after they enters, actively pushing it out. Correct. Some employ ultrafiltration in the roots. This is also correct. Some remove salt through shedding old leaves. All the 3 are correct. These kind of questions you should never miss out on. How many of you attempted question number 73 and got it right? See, question number, the last 2 or 3 questions are directly from any of the basic source that you have read. Not a difficult question. Anjali, this answer PDF will be shared very shortly the moment this discussion ends. Okay. Then again, if you want to match further questions, you can do that. Okay, very good. You got it right. So excellent. Okay, nice. Now, last year, direct question on Article 6 was asked. Okay, this year, again, a probable question can be other articles. There are many other articles related to the Paris Agreement. Fine. Now, Article 2, Article 4, Article 7. Okay, 3 articles have been asked to you. Right. Article 2 is correct. Talks about sustainable development, overall global average temperature 1.52 degrees Celsius. This is correct. Now, Article 7 actually talks about global goal on adaptation. So that part is not correctly matched here. Okay. And Article 4 talks about NDCs to be communicated every 5 years. You have to communicate these NDCs. Okay. So these 2 have been swapped. Okay. The answer which is correctly matched, only 1 is correctly matched. Article 6 was asked, that was related to market and non-market mechanisms, if you recall. Okay. Global goal on adaptation. Remember, India says instead of mitigation, 90% of the money goes to mitigation in climate finance, to go also on adaptation. India has, again, this year, previous year, India has re-emphasized adaptation again and again. Okay, and I think Hindi wala PDF bhi hona chahiye. Okay, that should also be there. I'll just ask and confirm. Okay, tab tak aap abhi answers dekh sakte ho, but I think because the question is also there in Hindi, explanation also will be there in Hindi. Don't worry. ठीक है? यहाँ तक समझ गए आप लोग? Till here, I hope you have been able to follow. Now, IPCC 6th assessment report classifies collapse of how many ecosystems? Okay, in fact, whatever ecosystem collapse it talks about, that is known as, usko what do we say that as? Say them as tipping points. Are coral reefs tipping points? Yes. In fact, in the classes also we have done this. I've shown you image properly. The global tipping points. Coral reef is one. Coral bleaching is going on. Okay. Coral reefs are under a lot of stress. boreal permafrost is thawing. This is also true. But methane hydrates specifically are not one of these tipping points. Here the answer is only 2. Right? And methane hydrates is again methane in only hydrated form. Now, if the permafrost is melting, then also we know that methane can be released from that. Okay? That is also true. Okay, so answer 75. What is the answer to 75? Pehla wala, first one is not correct. Okay, this is not directly mentioned. Other two are correct. Boreal frost is there and coral reef is there. Okay, these are correct. Now, in which this question 76 is also purely based on concept. Don't get confused. And when you see chemosynthesis, whenever light is available, if there are plants, if there are planktons, phytoplanktons, then you will have photosynthesis. If that is not available, you will have chemosynthesis. Now, the moment I see the term phytoplanktons are plants, okay, microscopic plants, they need sunlight. They cannot work in photosynthesis. Be wrong. Question is saying which works under chemosynthesis. So one cannot be there in the answer. Hydrothermal vents, yes, they can be there. In that, sulfur-related reactions or compounds are found. Yes, sulfur springs, this is great. So chemosynthesis will work in only these two, not the first one. Because phytoplanktons, it is not related to phytoplanktons. Okay, so when I say chemosynthesis, here instead, because normally what happens, you have photosynthesis, mein you have CO2 plus H2O, light ke presence mein the presence of light, C6H12O6, oxygen. In this case, light to hai nahi aapke paas, you don't have light. Then how the reaction is happening? The reaction is happening in certain cases because of certain microbes and certain sulfur based compounds. Right? So wo hydrothermal vents may be hoga. It is also going to be there in sulfur springs both. The answer is this, chemosynthesis. This should not be a very difficult question. How many of you got this right? Question 76. Now 77, again if you apply basic logical reasoning, right, you will get this question right. Sponges jo hai, fresh water sponge, you know what is a sponge doing? Sponge will absorb some of the points, right? Likha hai how they work as bioremediation agent. What is bioremediation? Remediation means treating waste, treating pollutants. High surface to volume ratio, yes, that helps them absorb more waste in a small span in an area. Continuous pumping of water through your body, this happens, correct? So for some organizations, they have symbiotic association, even that helps in better bioremediation, this is also correct. Ab last padho, ability to chemically degrade heavy metals. Pehli baat, heavy metals degrade, to degrade them is very difficult, right? And how will bioremediation do it? It will not be able to do it. और उसके ऊपर क्या लिखा है? Entirely. If directly if you apply your basic common sense, here also this becomes wrong, right? So first three are correct, which you can understand, and the fourth one, because this is very extreme, heavy metals, जो भी arsenic or lead को भी completely normally these heavy metals can be treated only by a specific industrial process, not by bioremediation. Bioremediation is a natural process. Fourth is incorrect, first three are correct. Three. I hope यहाँ तक follow कर रहे हो आप लोग, okay? Now, the next set of almost questions, some questions now on economy and some current affairs. Now, which will lead to demand pull inflation? देखो, there are inflation will be of two types. Either it will be cost push or it will be demand pull. Okay. Now, Middle East supply chain disruptions is in the news, so we've asked you a question based on the current aspects, linking your basic knowledge of economy. ठीक है? अब हमें देखना है what we have to think demand pull. When will the demand be high? Let's say when people's disposable income is high, right? तभी तो demand increase होगी. If the new pay commission is implemented, you will have more money available, more disposable income, higher demand, right? That can lead to demand pull inflation, correct? First is correct. Second है significant increase in the repo rate by the Reserve Bank of India. अगर repo rate, if it increases a lot, okay, in fact, it will reduce the demand pull inflation. if the repo rate is high, the money available, okay, for example, the money overall available will with the banks will be lesser. They have to keep certain amounts as a repo rate, right? Amount available for the corporates is less, amount available for the households is lesser, right? Can I say this? Overall, यहाँ पे interest rate will be higher. Overall, the disposable incomes will be less because of this. So this is not correct. Third, if there is a rapid expansion of money supply through deficit financing, तो क्या होगा? आपने मनी सप्लाई एकदम से बढ़ा दी, डेफिसिट फाइनेंस करा है, तो क्या होगा? बिकॉज यू हैव इंक्रीज द मनी सप्लाई, it can also lead to demand pull inflation, because it can also lead to higher disposable incomes. Here what will happen? There's too much of money chasing very less or limited goods. I mean, this can lead to demand pull inflation. Correct. Okay, so second is not correct, third is correct. Fourth, supply chain disruptions due to geopolitical conflicts. Now what are you seeing? India, let's say, is dependent on so much of energy and crude, and because of lesser availability of LPG, energy, crude, other let's say food prices, other prices are going up. Yes or no? ये क्या हुआ? It is not demand pull, it is cost push. क्यों? Because of increase in raw material cost. है ना? Right? Raw material cost की बढ़े से oil prices, shipping prices. So this is not demand pull, this is cost push inflation. Here, which will lead primarily to demand pull, only two factors that we have just seen. 78, very much applied question. I think some of you, आपने सही किया होगा hopefully. Answer is B, only two. Now, let's see this question. Investors in bond market demand a higher inflation premium when they expect future inflation to rise. अब सोचो, अगर bond market में somebody has invested money, right? And let's say they are expected to get 7% returns, but the inflation, let's say, is 8%. Inflation is more. So what is happening? Because of more inflation, their yield overall is less. है ना? Yield कम हो जाएगी. तो आप, you want a higher inflation premium so as to counteract, yeah, you are knowing the future inflation अगर वो बढ़ेगा, to counteract you want a higher inflation premium. Yes or no? So first statement is obviously correct. Okay. Now let's see the other two statements here. Fixed yield bondholders are at a risk of losing purchasing power if the inflation rises more than the bond yield. यही example मैं आपको दे रहा हूँ, right? अगर आपको fixed yield, if you are getting a fixed yield, whatever happens, so what if your yield is, let's say, 7%, but the inflation is even more than that? So overall cumulatively fixed yield पे आपको loss हो गया है. इस loss को, to prevent this loss, you want a higher inflation premium. So this is absolutely correct, right? Third statement, as the interest rate increases, existing bondholders, they face the risk of capital losses in the secondary market. Okay, अब देखो, अगर inflation is expected to rise, okay, so they also, the bondholders know that RBI is now going to take certain actions to take care of the inflation increase, to curb inflation. ठीक है, अगर interest rate rise होगा, है ना, तो existing bond, okay, जो भी है जिसमें lower coupons है, they will be less attractive. Okay, उनके प्राइस ड्रॉप होगा, yields ज़्यादा अच्छी नहीं होंगी. Even this is correct. If the interest rate is going to rise, okay, existing bondholders के पास प्रॉब्लम क्या है? They will have losses in the secondary market. True. Again, to counteract that, they will want higher inflation premium if they are expecting the future inflation. Okay. So here also, if you look at it, both the two statements, जो भी दोनों statement है हमारे, वो सही हैं. Okay. Statement 2 भी सही है, 3 भी सही है, and they are able to help us explain statement number 1, 79 पे. All right. Now, let's see money market पे कुछ basic कुछ और सवाल हैं यहाँ पे. Let's have a look at it. Now, funds are transacted for different time periods in the call money market and notice money market. ठीक है, अब basically देखो, call money market, if that is mentioned, right? Call money market में main चीज you have to remember, funds are transacted at a very short term, okay, basically overnight basis. Okay, and notice money market में it is almost from 2 to 14 days. So there are different time periods. Yes or no? Yes, बिल्कुल सही है. NBFCs cannot access the notice money markets. Okay, so ये बिल्कुल सही है. They cannot access the notice money, and in fact even the call money markets they cannot access it. Correct. RBI sets the interest rates in the call market. Now here RBI नहीं करता, basically जो भी free eligible participants हैं, whoever are the eligible participants, they are free to decide. So this is not done by the RBI. This is wrong. The answer becomes D, 1 and 2 only in this case. Okay, now let's look at question number 81. The last 20 questions remain. I hope you will now listen to these 20 questions with all the full josh. अब देखो 81 में it is incumbent on central government to entrust RBI with its debt and cash management functions. Okay, this is true. If you want to know, of course, there's a specific section of the RBI Act of 1934 which talks about it. So debt or cash management functions पे, yes, that is true. Central government will entrust the RBI with these functions. ठीक है. दूसरा WMA, ways and means, and these advances are uncollateralized advances granted. Right, बिल्कुल सही है. To the central government and the state governments as and when they are required to do so. Okay. Third one, the state governments maintain a consolidated sinking fund and the guaranteed redemption funds within the RBI as buffers for repayment of their liabilities. Yeah, ये भी सही है. They are required to maintain this. Okay. Any liabilities which are remaining, that is, so this question is again related to your RBI. In fact, if you also read in Polity, the borrowing of the center in the state, you will also read about WMAs. Okay, and then you have to link this with economy section, right? So RBI ki governments and central government, all the three are correct. Okay, not much to explain on this part here. Okay. Now this has been in the news. Variable rate reverse repo auction. What of the best, which is going to best describe, okay, this? Okay, इसमें I'll directly tell you the answer. To realign the weighted call rate, main क्या है ना, variable rate reverse repo auction. Okay, normally you read about the reverse repo, reverse repo. यहाँ पे variable rate है. It actually helps in realigning the weighted call rate with the targeted policy repo rate. Okay, और main, what is the main aim? जितनी भी excess liquidity है, okay, excess durable liquidity, okay, उसको absorb. We have to absorb that excess liquidity from the banking system so that these interest rates are actually aligned. और क्या हो, जो मार्केट की कंडीशंस हैं, सब कुछ है, वो स्टेबल हो जाए. यही, that is the main objective of this. Okay, so you have to absorb the excess extra liquidity that is present to ensure stability in the market. That is the main aim. Now capital infusion, बहुत बार हम पढ़ते हैं. सवाल क्या पूछ रहा है? Not correct. And very basic thing have been asked. What are Basel norms? Basel 3 से सवाल पूछा, recapitalization, bond recapitalization से related. Okay, now सवाल पूछा कौन सा नहीं करेक्ट है. Now recapitalization bonds are a tool within the central government issues bonds to public sector banks and uses the money to buy equity in these banks. ये सही है, ठीक है. The first part is correct. Okay, now the second part, recapitalization leads to immediate increase. Okay, पहली बात, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. There is no immediate increase the central government's fiscal deficit. So second one is wrong. There is no immediate increase. Third one, it is intended to meet or help PSBs meet Basel 3 capital adequacy, right? तो ये बिल्कुल सही है. Basel 3 की capital adequacy को meet करने के लिए ये होते हैं, ठीक है. So here the right answer, which is not correct, will be only one. Recapitalization does not lead to immediate increase in government's fiscal deficit. Okay, so that is there. क्योंकि कोई डायरेक्ट मनी तो लिया नहीं गया है. ओके, डायरेक्टली बैंक से फाइनेंस करा गया है. So that is why the reason is this. Okay, basically this is simply a accounting exercise between the government and the basic bank. Okay, so I think only this is a relatively, यहाँ पे there is only one statement that is not correct. Now this kind of question in the previous test also we have given you some calculation based question will be asked. यहाँ पे this is a relatively basic सा calculation है, यहाँ पे पूछा गया आपसे. So here what is asked to you is and you have to know the basic formula. Okay, formula क्या है, हमसे पूछा गया what is the current account balance, what is the CAB. होता क्या है, whatever is the goods trade balance. Okay, जो भी नेट सर्विसेज हैं, नेट इनकम है और नेट करेंट ट्रांसफर, सब कुछ. ओके, सो आई एम राइटिंग नेट इनकम, नेट करेंट ट्रांसफर्स. अब यू हैव टू सी दिस वेरी केयरफुली. यहां पे डेफिसिट लिखा है, तो यहाँ पे 180 will not be plus, 180 will actually be minus. So now I'm just putting it minus 180. करंट अकाउंट में सबसे पहला यू हैव टू टॉक अबाउट गुड ट्रेड बैलेंस होगा, दिस इज माइनस 180, ठीक है. सर्विसेज में प्लस लिखा है, प्लस 120. ओके, देन आई हैव टू टॉक अबाउट द नेट इनकम. इनकम साफ साफ लिखा है, ये हो जाएगा -20. ओके, उसके बाद द लास्ट पॉइंट दैट इज देयर इज नेट करंट ट्रांसफर्स. ओके, अब नेट करंट ट्रांसफर्स यहां पे हो जाएंगे जो हमारा नेट प्राइवेट रेमिटेंसेस हैं, दिस इज +80. ओके, इफ यू जस्ट कैलकुलेट दिस, -180 माइनस दिस -200, दिस इज +200, क्या हो गया 0. तो दिस इज नाइदर डेफिसिट नॉर सरप्लस. अब इसमें द मिस्टेक दैट यू कुड हैव डन इज, इसको अगर आपने +180 लिख लिया, इफ यू रिटन दिस +180, गलत हो जाएगा. तो गुड ट्रेड डेफिसिट लिखा है. ओके, तो ट्रेड, सर्विसेज, इनकम एंड द लास्ट वन यू कैन ऐड इज करेंट ट्रांसफर्स. उसको जोड़ के यू गेट कंट्रीज करंट अकाउंट बैलेंस. द आंसर इज डी, $0 billion. ओके, नाउ रिलेशनशिप पूछा है अपने से जीवीए, ग्रॉस वैल्यू एडेड एंड ग्रॉस डोमेस्टिक प्रोडक्ट के बीच में. ओके, इसमें भी डायरेक्टली आई कम टू दिस, यू हैव सीन सो मेनी टाइम्स. जीडीपी इज कैलकुलेटेड adding product taxes, subtracting subsidies to the GVA at basic prices. The answer 85. Next, if the US Federal Reserve maintains a high interest rate, and by the way, these kind of questions are also there in the NCERT, very basic. You should also remember that, right? Now, if the US Federal Reserve maintains a high interest rates while the RBI maintains a neutral stance, okay? So इसमें main thing is there is a low inflation in India. What is the most likely immediate impact on the rupee? ठीक है, तो अगर ऐसा कुछ होता है तो मेन चीज ये है, there can be a downward pressure, I can say a depreciating pressure. क्यों? Because of the interest rate differential. Okay, so this can be seen in this regard, right? एक downward एक part आपको दिख सकता है, right? This is generally seen in one sense. Okay, 1 second. अच्छा देखो, see, if you read the section, okay, of the RBI Act, I think this is with respect to question number on RBI, right? Ways and means advances. तो इसमें क्या है, when you read about it, it also mentions जो दोनों है, it is almost a nature of uncollateralized advance. Okay, so if that is the question, so I think that statement is not wrong overall. ठीक है, और मेन चीज क्या है, we know that it is there for the short term mismatches, but यहाँ पे भी अलग से there is a special category that is being created for that. In fact, इस क्वेश्चन में भी if there was the mention of normal ways and means advances, उस केस में you don't have a specific collateral, right? And there is something known as the SDF, the special drawing facility. वहां पे it is collateralized and there you need a government security for that. So states के केस में ना, there are two types of WMAs. So that is, I think you're thinking about that also. So in the, if there's a special ways and means advances separate case, वहां पे अलग से you have to have a collateralized arrangement for that. Okay, in that question again, if you just mention the question, I'll tell you what is the nuance. I think अगर confusion हो रहा हो, there are actually two types of it. Maybe that is the confusion that is with you. Okay, so ways and means में अगर generally मैं बोलूं, okay, so we can talk about in the nature, right? But अगर special ways and means advances हैं, तब वहां पे अलग से there's a special case to that. All right, I think I've just that, हाँ 81 वाले में, ठीक है. So just when we end it, I'll also give you maybe if there's some clarification needed on the remaining questions. Okay, 86 I don't think should be a challenge. Rupee may face depreciating pressure due to the different in rate of differential. That should be the answer to this question. ठीक है, आगे बढ़ते हैं. ट्रांसफर पेमेंट्स का कौन सा एग्जाम्पल है? सैलरीज इज नॉट अ पार्ट ऑफ द ट्रांसफर पेमेंट. ओके, other things that we see. So transfer payment, I hope directly you understand, right? क्यों? क्योंकि you have done something, right? And based on that work you have done, you have been given a compensation. So it is not a transfer payment. Whereas subsidies, सही है, interest payment ये भी ठीक है, old age pensions ये भी ठीक है. First three is a part of transfer payment. Salaries is not a part of transfer payment. Answer 27 is C. Okay. Another classic question of the types of goods, given goods, substitute goods, okay, or let's say the economies of scale, right? Now, if we look at the given goods and it's saying demand for luxury item, designer watches increasing despite the prices, okay? So, this definition is actually related to the Veblen goods, the luxury products, okay? But if I say given goods, these are inferior in nature, very much inferior, okay? So, these are non-luxury products, right? So, here if the price, जैसे भी the price increase करेगा, the demand also increases, okay? So, this is separate, this is Veblen goods. The demand for luxury items increases despite the rising prices. If it's a very expensive watch, the demand still will be higher. That's a Veblen good. Given goods are these inferior goods in that regard. Next, increasing subsidies of EVs, etc., leading to surge in the demand and fall in the demand of petrol vehicles. Substitute goods, bilkul sahi hai. They are a substitute, let's say, for the petrol and diesel vehicles. This is absolutely right. Next, economies of scale. See, what is the idea of economies of scale? Let's say there is one factory. It is producing 100 products. The cost of products is high. Same, another factory is producing 1 lakh products. It is working at very high capacity, right? So in terms of raw materials, in terms of wages, it has to spend less money per unit cost. Indian startup experiencing reduction in its long-term average cost, okay, per unit as it produces more. Correct. That is economies of scale. So normally, if there is a new technology, then you have limited products, high cost per product, then no economies of scale. But over a period of time, it becomes economies of scale. I hope that part is you are able to understand. Okay? So question is saying which of the following is incorrectly matched, right? Which is incorrectly matched? So of course the first one is incorrectly matched. Veblen good versus given goods. Now, which of the following will create monopolistic competition rather than perfect competition? Okay. अब देखो, monopolistic competition to happen, there are few conditions that must be there. Okay. So one is products are differentiated by branding and packaging. ये भी बिल्कुल सही है, right? How will these monopolies exist? So there are proper branding and packaging. Firms will spend heavy on advertisement. ये भी सही है. Each firm has a degree of price making power. This is also true. There are barriers to entry for small scale. नहीं. Monopolistic competition is characterized by the freedom of entry and exit. Freedom of entry and exit is actually present here. Okay. Now, the last, I think, few questions which are there. So, okay, the answer to this will be 3. Okay, so we remove 3. Other are correct. All of this will lead to a monopolistic competition rather than a perfect competition. Okay, so monopolies में main चीज है freedom of entry and exit होगी. बाकी चीजें सही हैं. That will lead to monopolistic competition. These are different types of, let's say, the things can be there in an economy. Now, almost all the current affairs that you will see, in fact, in our test and the questions that we've asked, will have a proper backing and a PYQ linkage. शुरू करते हैं 90 number question से. National Sports Day program is celebrated every year at 29th August. ये सही है. Hello India program was launched to promote sports culture. ये भी ठीक है. Now, National Sports Day इस साल क्यों celebrate करा जाता है? To mark the birth anniversary of Major Dhyanchand. So statement 1 is correct, 2 is correct, but 2 does not actually help explain statement number 1. Okay, so the answer is B. The real reason would have been National Sports Day क्यों celebrate होता है? To mark the birth anniversary of Major Dhyanchand, the legendary hockey player. Okay. Now, Major Dhyanchand खेल रत्न अवार्ड पहला, ठीक है. अर्जुना अवार्ड एंड द्रोणाचार्य अवार्ड. देखो द्रोणाचार्य अवार्ड विल बी फॉर कोचेस, एनेबलिंग स्पोर्ट्स पर्सन, ये भी ठीक है. अर्जुना अवार्ड में हियर इट इज मेंशन्ड लाइफ टाइम कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन. दिस इज रॉन्ग एक्चुअली. अर्जुना अवार्ड जब भी होगा इट इज ओवर अ पीरियड ऑफ रफली 4 years, नॉट लाइफ टाइम. दिस इज रॉन्ग. एंड मेजर ध्यानचंद खेल रत्न अवार्ड्स, दिस जो यहाँ पे जो मेंशन्ड है दैट इट इज गिवन फॉर आउटस्टैंडिंग. ओके, एंड दिस इज करेक्ट. Previous 4 years. Here Arjuna award mein it is not correctly mentioned. Just I'll quickly tell you the awards. Major Dhyanchand Khel Ratan awards has been given to Shri Gukesh chess, Harmanpreet Singh hockey, Praveen Kumar para athletics, Manu Bhakar shooting. These 4 you should remember. Okay, and again please remember outstanding contribution over the previous 4 years. Now Arjuna award में बहुत एक लंबी लिस्ट है, वो आप याद नहीं कर पाओगे. Only remember the 4 for Major Dhyanchand Khel Ratna awards. ठीक है. So here correctly matched, the two are correctly matched. All right. Now Pradhan Mantri Shram Yogi Mandan Yojana, this whole paragraph is there. Now here just if you read carefully, in the case of the subscriber's death, the spouse is entitled for the full pension amount 92. ऐसा तो नहीं होता, right? The spouse will actually get the 50%. So here, if I remove the full pension with the 50% amount, okay, that is Shram Yogi Mandan Yojana. This is basically related to unorganized sector in their old age. Okay, so keep this in mind. 50% pension amount मिलेगा. बाकी जो details लिखी the correct. You can read them. Polar Silk Road Initiative 93 क्वेश्चन देखते हैं. यहाँ पे इट इज एसोसिएटेड विद बेसिकली क्या है, एक्सपेंशन ऑफ हाई लैटिट्यूड शिपिंग आर्कटिक वाटर्स, चाइना के बेल्ट एंड रोड फ्रेमवर्क के केस में, राइट. पोलर सिल्क रोड एंड वी ऑलरेडी नो चाइनाज BRI लॉन्च्ड इन 2013. अब तो ऑलमोस्ट 13 years हो चुके. हैज अ लैंड बेस्ड कंपोनेंट, इट आल्सो हैज अ मैरीटाइम कंपोनेंट टू दैट. The Polar Silk Road Initiative is an expansion of those shipping routes to Arctic waters. Right, talking of Arctic waters, even Greenland is in the news. We know Trump. This is the answer B, Polar Silk Road. Next we see polymetallic nodules, P, right. So you have polymetallic sulfides, rich seabed deposits, hydrothermal vents, they are found. Okay, so this is correct. They are crucial for renewable energy, high technology application. This is also correct. Currently India has the largest allocated seabed area globally for this particular, okay, allocation. Okay, so this is true, and here you have to just, this is also correct, and in fact we've gotten exclusive rights for the sulfates in the, remember this Carlsberg Ridge in the Indian Ocean. Okay, so India becomes the first country to hold 2 contracts. कौन सी बॉडी है, इंटरनेशनल सी बेड अथॉरिटी. Okay, एक अलग से we have a deep ocean mission, right, blue economy. Any of these themes can be asked overall. The answer here overall will be 1, 2 and 3. Polymetallic nodules, polymetallic sulfides. Okay, mining of it, who gives the verdict? The answer is International Seabed Authority. याद रखेंगे. Deep ocean mission is also something you can write and read about later. Now Tea Board of India, right, let's see this. And sometimes you get confused which ministry is this related to. Okay, तो पहला क्या लिखा है, it works with Ministry of Commerce. बिल्कुल सही है. Without statutory backing, this is wrong. Okay, there is a specific, okay, act, that is the Tea Act of 1953. So it has a statutory backing and it's an attached office of Ministry of Commerce. So because of this, first statement becomes wrong. Okay, बाकी it has more than 25 members including the chairman. This is actual point. ठीक है. Headquarters is Kolkata. That is also right. Main, what is incorrect? First statement, which is the most important statement of Tea Board, that becomes incorrect. ठीक है. आवाजा program of action. Sometimes you can get these one-liners. अगर अब इसको आपने टेस्ट में देख रखा है, if you directly get a question, you will get it right. So आवाजा, this particular point is for the landlocked developing countries. LLDC, not LDC. LDC will be least developing. ये क्या है? This is for landlocked developing countries. This is a particular convention of United Nations for their sustainable development. That's it. These will be, or this is simply a one-liner for us. One second. Question number 91. Let me that. Acha, one second. What are you telling? For 1 and 2 have been swapped, is it? No, you please cross check for Dhyan Chand Khel Ratna Awards. Okay. I think, is it for lifetime or is it for 4 years? Just cross check it once, and based on that we can again see what is the answer to that. Okay. If that is a point, I'll also have a look at it. Yeah. Coming back, fiber optic drones, FOBs, right? Now let's have a look at what is the correct part here. FODs are immune to jamming or interception, okay, by electronic warfare signal. Okay, this is correct. Why? Because main thing is fiber optic drones की जो सबसे बड़ी positive है, they don't rely on this communication. They do not rely on wireless communication, so you cannot jam or intercept them. So this is a positive to that, right? So है क्या? Basically there is a fiber cable to transmit the data. भाई wireless communication तो नहीं है. This is correct. Now they have a significantly higher operational range. नहीं. अब this is physical cable is going to be limited only. Their range is actually limited, but the advantage is they're immune to interception and jamming. Okay, so this actually is wrong. Okay, so at max you can have them for 10, 20, 30 kilometers, sometimes 50 even, but normally speaking they don't have a high operational range. This is a limitation. Okay, FODs support multiple communications. अब ये तो नहीं है. They actually support a single communication, not multiple. जो बेसिक जो आपके RF drones होते हैं, basic common which use the wireless communication, they can have multiple communication. They can, but they will be intercepted. They can be jammed. They can be taken into electronic warfare. So here, what is the benefit? Is number one, immune to jamming. Second, they have limited operational range. ये benefit तो नहीं हुआ, ठीक है? And they actually support a single communication and a single frequency. They don't operate at a large range of frequency, right? They actually have a single frequency range. So here, what is the correct answer? Correct answer is only one. Answer is C. Only one answer is correct, right? Now, India-UK Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement is aimed at enhancing the cost competitiveness of the Indian professionals in the UK. ठीक है? अब इसमें ये बड़ा important है. इस में double contributions convention prevents temporary, okay, Indian professionals in the UK from making dual security, social security contribution. Dual means if you're doing the social contribution 2 times, उसको रोकने के लिए that you should only be doing it once. This is there, and because of this, the cost competitiveness of the Indian professionals in UK is there. So whenever you see the Indian-UK agreement, trade agreement, उसमें एक बड़ा important factor है the double contributions convention to prevent the temporary professionals from making dual social security contribution, को रोकने के लिए, ठीक है? So this is there. So here the answer will be A for 98. Correct भी है, explain भी कर रहा है उसको. Now, the President of India had released the Constitution of India in the Santhali language. Okay? And if you read this particular article, this Santhali language is written in the old Kiki script. Okay? Now, let's see this question. If you look at question number 99, okay, so first thing is, it belongs to Austroasiatic language. ये सही है. The script old Kiki is also correct. And this was included in the 8th schedule of the Constitution through the 92nd amendment. This is also correct. In fact, in the original 8th schedule, you had 14 languages, increased to 22. This happened through 71st Constitutional Amendment Act, 71st Constitutional Amendment Act, and 92nd Constitutional Amendment Act. The addition, one language was added, 3 languages were added, 4 languages were added. In case you're not aware, you go back and see which languages are added here. So from 14 to 22, now this has been in the news, and because this has been presented, so a question on this part can be added. So whole Chiki script is correct, Austro-Asiatic language is correct, and it was added to the Constitution through 92nd Amendment Act. This answer becomes all the 3. Okay, and with that we come to the last for the day. Consider the following statements about a saint in the 12th century. He founded the Lingayat tradition, the reign of Kalyani Chalukya. Promoter of Ahimsa, condemned animal sacrifices. Anubhav Mantap was a general practice to. Yep. Answer is Vishwara. Okay, but all the other personalities, Adi Shankaracharya, Madhavacharya, okay, Purandar Das, you should be aware about their contribution as well. Okay, so here the moment you see Lingayat tradition, okay, the answer directly becomes Basaveshwar. Okay, so that is your answer overall. Okay, and again institutions like Abhinav Mantap was again a hall of spiritual exercise. Okay, spiritual experience, that is important contribution. Okay, now any other question that you want me, or otherwise in the PDF that will be shared, we'll take care of that. I think one question that was highlighted was question number 81. Can anybody just summarize those questions just for my reference, so that the moment you get this, all these will be sorted? How many of you watched the discussion till here? किसने पूरा देखा है? Any other question? For example, I think 81 मैंने देखा. One is somebody saying 81. Okay, any other question apart from that, if that is there? So when you get, I think very shortly you will get your PDF also. Those of you who wanting to see this, वो भी वहाँ पे changes या कुछ होगा तो आपको दिख जाएगा. But broadly speaking, I hope you have been able to understand the discussion fairly well. I don't see any specific question here. So what I'll do, see now, because this is done, some points of advice for you who have done this test. Okay, देखो सबसे पहले तो today is Sunday, and of course on the 24th of May on a Sunday you will be writing the exam, both the papers, paper 1 and paper 2. पहली चीज तो एक बार check करना your performance, just how did you do in paper 1 and paper 2 overall. Okay, first thing is you will just see overall your scores. Course के बाद, those of you who have seen the session, second part is analysis. Analysis में what do we see? We see our sections. इस section में how have we performed? We also analyze the type of mistakes that we are making. Are there any recurring mistakes? Some of you will also be doing some other mock tests. ठीक है, अब देखो, point is from today to your exam, I am saying roughly आपके पास 60 days plus हैं. ठीक है, and 60 days is a very good time. Those of you who are a part of boot camp, all your major classes are done, a couple of extra classes are in progress, वो भी complete हो जाएगा. ठीक है, you will be in a very, very much comfortable position. Any other student who has done their courses, okay, from any other, आप अभी टेस्ट दे रहे हो, point is जो next days हैं आपके, that should be spent in a lot of revision, that should be spent in solving the PYQs and your continuous analysis. Point is, देखो, my philosophy is prelims is all about MCQ. If I solve more and more MCQs, we will get better at MCQ. ठीक है, so because of this it is important. ऐसा नहीं है कि आप MCQ, आप कोर्स, आप जो भी स्कोर अभी कर रहे हो, मेन थिंग इज टू स्कोर ऑन 24th of May. तो अभी तो 60 days बचे हुए हैं. सो इवन इफ लेट्स से यू आर हैविंग मोर नेगेटिव्स, किसी के ज़्यादा नेगेटिव आ रखे हैं, यू शुड नॉट लूज योर स्लीप या मोटिवेशन कि अरे यार मेरे तो क्या होगा, अब तो सिर्फ 60 दिन बचे. नहीं, 60 दिन बचे हैं, 60 days. एंड यू कैन थिंक ऑफ, इफ यू वर्किंग प्रिपेयरिंग फुल टाइम, if you even think of 10 hours, 8 hours to 10 hours per day, You have more than 600 hours remaining, more than 600, right? The point is you have to look at possibility and you have to look at opportunity, पहली चीज, ठीक है? And if you have scored whatever is a negative, पहले देखना है आज के टेस्ट में कौन से doable questions मेरे गलत हो गए. What questions which I knew I should have answered correctly, पर मुझसे पता नहीं, whatever happened, I was in stress, I did not read the question carefully. So that is why I'm saying analyze your mistakes. And when you do that, don't be extra harsh on yourself. Okay? In doing this, you can take the help of this whole video. Okay? In some places, if you feel that my explanation is a bit rushed, because also there is a paucity of time, you can also go through the PDF that we have. Okay? And additionally, you can also drop a comment on YouTube. We'll also reply to that. So वो सब हम करेंगे ensure. Don't worry on that. तो पहली चीज है, आप जो भी परफॉर्मेंस आपकी आई है, this is not an overall indicator of how you will perform in the D day. बिल्कुल भी नहीं है. It is only test for you, right? It's a simulation. The more you revise it, with every revision, your scores will improve, right? ऐसा नहीं कि this I am saying you do it, you know. अगर आपने हिस्ट्री अच्छे से पढ़ रखा होगा, पॉलिटी रिवाइज हो रखा होगा, वो आपकी एक्यूरेसी अपने आप से रिफ्लेक्ट करेगी. एंड योर स्कोर, द मोमेंट यू गेट 5 क्वेश्चंस करेक्ट, एकदम से स्कोर बूस्ट हो जाता है, ऑलमोस्ट 12 पॉइंट समथिंग मार्क्स से. बट 5 क्वेश्चंस इनकरेक्ट, एकदम से स्कोर गिर जाता है, राइट? So you should take these fluctuations again with a pinch of salt, because if you lose too much of time, right, in demotivation कि अरे यार मैं स्कोर नहीं आया, you are actually losing out your time. ये तो limited है, fixed है, अपने को इसको optimize करना है, ठीक है? Now, if you are somebody जिसका portion, if you have substantial portion left, you should first prioritize completing your portions and then, right, जिसके portions अच्छे से हो गए हैं, all you have to do, you have to have more revisions and more MCQ. But MCQ देने का मतलब सिर्फ ये नहीं, you just sit for a test and you are done with it. No. Sitting for a test means not just filling the OMR. Knowing your scores is not enough. Main thing ये है, and we run away from this analysis because this is going to be painful for many of us. है ना? इसी को we sit patiently with yourself and see the kind of mistakes you're making. Even if you have attempted, पिछले 2-3 साल का अगर आप actually UPSC exam देके आ रखे हो, have those papers with you and again sometimes go back and see what was your mental state when you made those mistakes. ठीक है? Our job is to be better than our previous version. So whatever your version was in 2025 attempt, 2024 या उससे पहले का, या जो अभी ये कुछ mocks हैं, है ना? And again, nobody can mimic the exact level of UPSC or, right? We are also trying to do that. Some questions will be close, some questions can be tougher or can be easier. It can be both ways, है ना? So here also again, you have to give yourself the benefit of the doubt. But main चीज क्या है, अपनी तैयारी कम नहीं होनी चाहिए इसी वजह से, ठीक है? So based on wherever stage you are, अगर पढ़ने की ज्यादा रिवीजन की ज्यादा जरूरत है, ज्यादा फोकस करो. Then don't aimlessly, mindlessly attempt every other mock, because that also becomes a distraction. Mock will help me when I have done this part well, I have done this part well, and now I'm seeing the test taking strategy, how to manage my time, how to fill the OMR, how to manage the pressure, है ना? So I think that part I wanted to communicate to all of you. That is there. Question number 79 somebody has mentioned, and question number 81. ठीक है? When we upload the PDF, I think that will be done very shortly. Those questions I'll have a look at. ठीक है? Gopal Krishnan, you scored 48. Okay, 35 is correct. See, 39, जो whatever 33 questions you've got incorrect, and some और भी लोग के हो सकते हैं ज़्यादा क्वेश्चन इनकरेक्ट हुए हो. पहली बात, look at your mistakes. 33 incorrect हुए, okay? And the questions that you did not attempt. Maybe some questions you should have attempted. कुछ क्वेश्चन आसान भी हो सकते हैं, है ना? And the questions where you got wrong, that also you can have a look at. Okay, so my point is, first sit with the nature of your mistakes. Okay, then with the time this will get better. That is the overall point I want to make here. ठीक है? Okay, code you were saying for question number 48. And okay, I think for this part also ना nuclear वाले part पे भी I think the explanation can be ठीक है. Okay, for 48 is I've taken. I'll just very quickly update that. Okay, any other question apart from that? I think 48 हो गया, 79, 81. ठीक है? So now very shortly when you get your PDF, those things we'll have a look at and rectify whatever is there. ठीक है? All right, then I'll take your leave. It has been a long discussion overall. Any other point you want to discuss? Okay, people who are watching this online, I'll just share an online number on which you can drop a message with your performance. You can just mention your performance if you want to share with me in the comment section mein, if you want to share it publicly or privately, whatever is there. If you want to have a discussion on how to improve this, etc., this is what you can reach up. ठीक है? So the answer की PDF will be very shortly shared with you. ठीक है? Very shortly वो share हो जाएगी. ठीक है? Okay then. Thank you so much. I'll take your leave now.